Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Peace and love. I'm Brother Ali. This is the Travelers Podcast. Very grateful that you're here. I'm very grateful that I'm here. Very grateful that our guest Tone Trump is here. This is a really special, important episode to me, as almost all of them are. We always say that the Travelers Podcast is called that because of the fact that we're co-travelers in the journey of life. And it's really important that we share our experiences and recognize the reflections that we see in one another, because they really do a lot to inform our understanding of our own walk. And some people are so bright with how they shine, and their light is very particular to our experience, and they actually help light the way for others. And those are the people we're trying to talk to. So a lot of the people that are here and a lot of the people that are in my life, and I'm actually a person like this too, we're people that are not famous in a traditional sense. So that most people in the world don't have any clue who we are or what it is that we do. But for the section of the world who is aware of what we do, and it's usually communities that we come from, communities we speak for, communities we speak to, those niche audiences and small communities really appreciate what we do, and they support us, and it's what we represent is very important. And so a lot of the people on the podcast are like that, you know. Some of them are, you know, famous in the broader community. Cornel West was our first guest on this podcast, and he's running for president. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, Chuck D, is, you know, a lot of people that have been on the podcast are like that. And a lot of my friends are that way. But even more of us are people that within a very specific community mean a lot. And it's because of the way we've been taught and trained and poured into, and also the dedication that we've put into listening to ourselves, listening to our communities, and finding ways to give voice to the experience and the lessons that we've picked up along the way. And Tone Trump is absolutely one of those people. Tone Trump, if you are familiar with street, like the specifically underground, independent part of hip hop music that is in and of and by and for the street culture, Tone Trump is one of those people. So if you followed World Star Hip Hop when that was one of the most important hip hop platforms, for better and for worse, good, bad, and ugly, World Star Hip Hop was a major voice in the hip hop landscape. And Tone Trump was one of the people that showed up on that platform a lot. If you were really familiar with that platform, you saw him. And he was, you know, one of associated with Young Jeezy, who is one of the street artists that really made it into the mainstream. And Tone's trajectory is one that's really common. He's somebody that started out in street life, both in terms of, and everything that entails and everything that brings with it. And a lot of people are that way. You know, I talk in this podcast about the fact that African people were stolen from their land and brought to these shores. And every effort was made over the course of hundreds of years to remove any memory and any knowledge, outward knowledge of peoplehood. And these are amazing tribes that have, I mean, lineages that we don't really have a beginning point for. People who developed math and science and art and culture and language and spirituality and all of the sciences that we have known and understood. These are the original human beings, the mother and father of the human family and of civilization itself, who have these tremendous legacies and lineages and tribes and languages. And people were stolen and brought to America and to the Americas and spread out around the world, creating a diaspora of people that have this shared experience, and then underwent centuries of the most diabolical and inhumane treatment that human beings have visited upon each other, certainly in recorded history. And then after that, what happened? So like as soon as slavery was legally done and when it was outlawed, I mean, what happened? I mean, first of all, African people, black people fought in the Civil War. I mean, the Civil War wasn't necessarily a rap. You know, it wasn't necessarily a layup. It was a deep struggle. And something like 500,000 people lost their lives, and families were fighting against each other. And it wasn't until black soldiers were allowed to join and fight on the behalf of the North that the war was actually won. And so, as Dave Chappelle points out, says we almost freed ourselves, and it's true. You know, and then after that, black people immediately, former enslaved Africans immediately built entire towns, cities, business districts, businesses of all types, educational institutions, and press, and everything needed for life. And we're thriving, and we're being elected to public offices. And then terrorism, domestic terrorism started to sprout up, and in form of the Ku Klux Klan, and these business districts were burned down, and some of them were bombed, and some of them they used eminent domain to build freeways and thoroughways through them to break them up. So if you look at, Tulsa, Oklahoma, the race riots, white race riots that erupted, and cities were literally burned. Black cities and black business districts and businesses. And so all of these different avenues throughout time were cut off to the black community as a whole, as a group. And the one avenue that was left open was the underworld. Vice was drugs, sex work, and related kind of businesses. Those things were still left open because America still had a demand and a desire for the things that the underworld provides, drugs and gambling and sex work and things like that. So those avenues were left open. And there's always been this big dialogue within the black community about, just because those avenues are open doesn't mean that we should follow them. And there's a big conversation, but a lot of great and really tremendous black leadership comes from that kind of intersection of street life and economics coming into black empowerment and spiritual betterment. So Malcolm X is just one of the many stories like that, of a person who was raised in the black freedom movement, in the black struggle for power and liberation. His parents were followers of Marcus Garvey. His father was killed by the Ku Klux Klan. And then the people, they had a life insurance policy, and they cheated his family out of what was rightfully theirs, because they claimed that this man committed suicide. And they didn't pay out if you died of suicide. And so his mother said, "Are you telling me he bashed in his own head with a hammer and laid himself down on the streetcar tracks and was cut in half?" Because that's how the Ku Klux Klan actually killed him in the Midwest. And so you got these great leaders who were run out of city after city, these people who were responsible business people, who did everything right, who got life insurance, but it wasn't given to them. And then the family was broken up. And Malcolm went to a white school and was a brilliant person who said, "I want to be an attorney." And obviously Malcolm Little at that time, can be an attorney, but his teacher said, "You're black, you can't be a lawyer. You should be a carpenter." "Wasn't your father a carpenter?" "No, he was a well-known famous preacher and teacher and community leader." "Oh, well, Jesus was a carpenter. You should just be a carpenter." So Malcolm X drops out of school, and then he gets into a life of crime, because that gift of gab and those particular skill set works out in crime, and then you can make money and you can earn a living. And so Malcolm X ends up in prison, and then in prison, he hears the message of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he becomes a Muslim, and then he becomes this great leader. And so this story plays out over and over and over again. You find that these gangster rappers, Ice Cube wrote Gangsta Gangster, and Ice Cube wrote F the Police. And then Ice Cube went on in his solo work. There was a period where he was the most revolutionary black conscious rapper, one of the most powerful of them all. And you see that over and over and over again, where people that come from brilliant backgrounds are relegated to street life and then make that transition into being conscious. And so the people that raised me and trained me and inspired me were people that brought together art and culture, and also taught us a lot about what it meant to be men, the kind of men that we should want to grow up to be, the type of men that were that were sweet and loving and sincere and caring and nurturing, and that had a full range of emotions that we processed together, that like we cried together. And we also talked about the way that children should be nurtured and treated, the way that women should be treated. This is the training that I got. And in so many aspects of life where you find the Mankind Project and the Promise Keepers and all these different areas where people are trying to really look into, in different iterations, you have people like Kevin Samuels and Andrew Tate and, you know, all these different messages about what does it mean to be a man. But men looking for that and really thirsting for that and yearning for that in public, you know, we were taught and trained by the mentors and the people in our community for how to do that. And I found with as much as the public narrative, especially in the 90s, was like, oh, black families aren't together and black men are deadbeats and black men don't raise their kids and all this kind of, this was the message coming from the media and from all these different places. But my experience was that these great black fathers and leaders and teachers and mentors and business people were there and present and were teaching. And some of them came from street life. Some of them were still in street life. Some of them were active hustlers and pimps that were saying like, this isn't for you. You know what I mean? Or if you're going to be in this life, you have to have some sort of code that you follow and some sort of ethics. And it's not clean, you know, it's messy and it's not all, you know, it's not all pretty and it's not all justifiable, but it's what is and it's what was. And so in this conversation, you hear me and Tone Trump talking through a lot of that. And specifically, those of us that came from that life. And I was never a street person. I was never in street life for a lot of reasons. One is that I look like this. Another one is that I can't see. Another one is that I did have parents. You know, we had a strained relationship and it wasn't always easy. But another one is that I'm just not set up like that. I wasn't scary to, you know what I mean? Even though I did have to learn how to fight, and a lot of the fights I won, and I did lose some too, you know, but this is the life that I came from. And so in the mosque, specifically in urban environments, and Philly is one of the hubs and the centers of this type of intersection. People that were taught and trained by hip hop and by Islam, we came up like this. So Tone Trump and I share a lot, but we also share a very specific experience of being connected to people that in our generation that also come from these intersections that took more to being religious speakers. And I don't know if they're necessarily scholars, but they're people who are looked at and seen as religious spokespeople and even religious leaders, and they're understood to be religious scholars. And so the connections that we had with some of these people really placed us and positioned us as like, we're artists that care a lot about the spiritual path. And we are dedicated Muslims and trying to be that. And then you have these like spiritual speakers who also appreciate art and culture. And so our public kind of relationship with them helped to spread the word, you know, and helped to kind of bring these two kind of streams together. And both of us had experiences where we were very publicly and privately connected to people who went off track, to spiritual teachers who went off track and went off course, and had to and it turns out that there were people being hurt, manipulated, harmed by these people because of the fact that they were looked at as religious authorities. And that's a really hard position to be in. As the artist that's connected with this person, that those things are hidden from us. Those people don't show us that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because they know that we're not down with that. You know, I was, there are artists that people come forward and say, this artist did this thing to me in private, you know, and it's like, man, if they know that you're not part of that, if they know that you don't get down like that, they hide those things from you, whether it's an artist or a religious person or whatever. People that sniff cocaine, for example, they don't just do that openly. They find other people that do cocaine. And they start noticing them, and they can tell each other. And the same way for people that get down like this, that harm people using their public platform, and especially for the people that are looked at as religious figures, the guard is down. You know what I'm saying? And so then we start to get wind of it. And then it's like, well, what do I do? What do I do about that? You know what I'm saying? It's a really difficult situation to be in. And so part of what you're going to hear in this conversation is me and Tone Trump really bonding and reflecting these experiences, like bonding over the experience of like, what do I do now? How am I supposed to carry this? And I saw Tone Trump in a position where he felt like he had to speak out about this person that he had basically publicly co-signed, you know? And so I saw him doing something that I foresaw myself maybe having to do. It turns out that that wasn't the course that I needed to take, you know, and we're all just doing our best with like, what do I do now that I know this? You know what I'm saying? So this is a very important conversation to me, and I hope that it's beneficial to others. The intention here is never to speak ill of other people. You know what I'm saying? Or to backbite others or to defame anybody, you know. But this is a real genuine attempt of people who are in a very messy, lived reality. Like we are both deeply entrenched in reality, that we're not just speaking about these things as in the realm of ideas. This isn't a philosophical conversation. Me and Tone are both in the trenches, helping people in our own ways, you know what I'm saying, and showing up in the front lines that we've been given. And we're doing this stuff in real time and in real life. And so you see us working together and talking this stuff out together as brothers, and it's a really beautiful thing. We're brought to you as always by the Zakat Foundation. Z-A-K-A-T is the pillar of Islam where Muslims give back. And no matter who you are, no matter where you are in life, there's something that you can share. You know what I'm saying? Like all of us, if we have $5 more than what we need to get through the day, then that's $5 that we can share with somebody. And Zakat Foundation is a global Islamic organization and charity, but they don't only help Muslims, they don't use their platform and the work they do to try to convert people. And so it's a good place to donate. Everything that I've seen of them has felt really good to me, all my interactions and conversations with them. So go to Zakat, Z-A-K-A-T, Zakat US on social media, or zakat.org online. Check out the things that they do. And if you put as little as $5 down on something, you know that it's actually really going to help people who are in need. So we're very grateful to be associated with Zakat Foundation. Enjoy this episode of the Travelers Podcast. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Get it. Get it. So we were just talking about Cool G Rap. Said Cool G Rap.
G Rap.
He recognized you at the
I never forget it, man. We was coming up the street, and I'm always on defense. You know, I'm always just militant.
Yeah.
We in New York, obviously. You know, you extra tie your camel. So I see we coming up to the building where Shade 45 is at. We see a group of dudes. So we walking up already cautious, and I see him pointing, and I realized right away it was G-Rap and a couple other brothers I didn't know. But I was telling you off air, one of my highlights of my career, of ever existing in this hip hop genre, was G-Rap knowing who I was. That just meant so much to me, you know, coming from just a kid who played, you know, back when I was young. I couldn't afford the whole album, so I was a guy that would go get singles. I would either steal them, or they would be like $1 or $2. So I had like a crazy collection.
The cassette single or the 12-inch?
The cassette singles.
Yeah,
that was like my thing, and I would use the actual covers. I would like do over my books. Like we had like the Trapper Keepers and stuff like that, where you had the slits, and I would put like all.
Yes.
And G-Rap was something that like is like certain records I remember because I had a pretty strict parents, and I remember getting in trouble for Road to the Riches. And Onyx had a record, Back the F Up, that I used to just be in love with. And those were two records that my mother just did not love. So my mother would turn that off. I'm not that. But for me, G-Rap's genius and brilliance, even now, like to me, the true testament of greatness is listening to something from many, many years ago,
Yeah.
and it sounds like they made it last week.
Yeah.
And to me, out of all our legends, for what I like musically,
Mm-hmm.
he's like the model of like, you know, like to me, he's like the way like my generation love Hove.
Mm-hmm.
I love G-Rap. I love guys like G-Rap and Schoolie D. There's others too, but Ice-T. But for me, G-Rap was rapping like as a little bad kid from West Philly. Like to me, he was the coolest.
Mm.
His music was the coolest, and I still love him. He's still fire. Like he can go in the booth today and give you crazy 16. So much love and respect to G-Rap and everybody around him too, because his team was real respectful and loving. So, and then he wound up coming to Philly like a couple months later, and I got to go on stage with him and AZ, which was like everything to me. AZ's big into my development because when I was locked up as a juvenile, he was the first person I heard say Allah on the records.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And being young and Muslim, when I was growing up, it wasn't as cool as it is now. When I was little, it was like we got teased for what happened. Like my dad was so militant, I was wearing a kufi to Catholic school. So, so I was like the kid on Sister Act with had the little dashiki. Right. That was me in real life. Like, and my dad was like, you better keep it on too. Like, and it was like I used to be like embarrassed to wear it, and now it's such a thing. You see me in here now with a custom thobe on.
Yeah,
it's something that we take so much pride in, and even the youth. Like I love seeing 14, 15-year-olds during the Eid just taking so much pride. We didn't do that at 15. I'm not gonna lie. I can't remember my favorite thobe at 16, but I see these kids now taking the time to get thobes made, and I love it, mashallah.
You got the matching J's and all that stuff.
Yeah, I love it, man. Allah loves beauty, and I try to tell people,
right.
We got to be, may he protect us from arrogance and things like that. But he loves beauty, and we are the best of humanity. Like when I look at Philadelphia during Eid, I was just telling you all that off camera.
Yeah.
Bro, I was in Malibu. I was in California, by the water, eating the best food in the world, and I'm on my phone looking at the Eid in Philadelphia in a very low income area, and I was dying to get on the plane to come back just to be around that ummah and that love. And today I got it, and it was everything I wanted. Nothing against Cali because it's a beautiful place.
Yeah,
I love the food, the weather, but it's nothing superior to the love of the believers and being around it, just walking out and the sisters cooking the food. Like it was none of that. Like my imam sent me to this spot in L.A., Masjid Mukmeen, and may Allah bless this ummah because they were very nice to me.
Yeah.
But when we got done praying, they had Krispy Kreme donuts and orange juice. I'm from Philadelphia. I walk outside. Sister Hadifa got the shrimp salads and the grilled chicken. Like I need that.
I'm gonna need fried fish.
There you go.
And spaghetti.
There you go.
And bean pie.
There you go. You know, your wife is African American and Boricua, so you know what it's like. That's what I am too.
You're Puerto Rican?
Yes, I am.
Oh my God.
Yes, I am. So that's why if you see when I do the MDF custom thobes, people always wonder why we do the red, black, and green for Africa. We do the Puerto Rican flag. We do the Palestinian flag for their struggle, and then we do the moon and the star, which is it symbolizes Islam. But we always put the PR flag. And my business partner is 100% Puerto Rican, so and we doing a lot of groundwork with working with Puerto Rico. Brother Muta, you familiar with him? He's half Puerto Rican too. So
yeah.
We putting something together, man, for the for the Spanish Muslims, and people don't understand we're the fastest growing religion because of Latinos.
That's right. Yeah.
That's who's making us the fastest growing. So bless them.
Yeah, man, amazing. It's crazy, man. Like how Puerto Rico's. I mean, it's so woven through our culture, and
absolutely,
like so woven through hip hop culture.
Absolutely.
On the East Coast, it's like
they was here. Like people don't understand. Like it was a lot of controversy recently with that, and it's like. I'm always like so defensive because I'm very geographical, and you won't find somebody more proud to be black, Muslim, Spanish than Tone Trump. So I'm very sensitive about those conversations. So when it was being talked about with hip hop, and I was seeing people trying to, first of all, you can't separate the Puerto Ricans from the Africans.
Nah.
You know what I mean?
It's a white supremacist mind frame set to do that.
Right. You can't do that. Like we're all one.
Yeah.
But that's another conversation. But the thing is to see it. But when it comes to the foundation of hip hop, you can't tell that story without the Boricuas. You just can't. And none of the OGs all tell you that. So for people that's like in their 30s trying to rewrite this history, it's just blasphemous.
Well, and then the reason that they're doing it, like I think I understand the reason why there would be this like sense of protection around black art and creative.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? But it's like, let's make sure it's aimed at where it's meant, where that protection is aimed at.
That's my concern.
That's from white cultural appropriation.
Right.
And that's from, you know what I'm saying? That should be aimed at Elvis, and that should be aimed at like the companies that were like, okay, thank you for creating all of this brilliant, beautiful culture and art. Now we're just gonna find some whiter people
right, because we've seen it done so many. I mean, we even with hip hop, we seen it happen, but we, like you said, aim it in the right place. We can't like, don't disrespect somebody like Fat Joe, who, come on, like, he was there.
I think Fat Joe might be the most hip hop individual, like, especially now that Biz Markie isn't with us anymore.
That's what made me so upset. Like people were trying to front him.
If you would think of a human being in human form, who's more hip hop than that dude?
I might have one.
Okay,
Buster,
yeah.
He, to me, like, and they like neck and neck, because both of them. One of the beautiful things about both of them that I can say, because in knowing both of them, they show so much love to people.
Right.
I've noticed that. Like,
man.
I met Busta Rhymes the first time, right? And the experience I had with Busta Rhymes, I felt so special.
Did he give you the Farrakhan speech? Brother, your delectable eloquence on the microphone is kingly.
The funny part is,
you're royalty walking on the ground.
I thought I was like the chosen one until I met so many people who had like the same experience with Bus. Like, it was like, he told me that. I'm like, wait.
But it's only with people that he believes in.
There you go.
It's just like real recognized real.
He court me one day. I had a show. It was a big show too for me at the time. It was at BB King's, and Funk Flex was launching in Flex We Trust, and he handpicked like the lineup. And for me, being from Philly, you know, being New York's little brother,
right?
That's always like a thing for us, like to get that acknowledgement. For anybody to get it from NYC, obviously. But at the show, I was bringing my brother Freeway out, and Bus pulls me to the side, and he's like, "Oh, you know, he can't be calm, so he's intense." He like, "You at the point now? You don't need that." He's talking about me bringing Free out. Like, he's like, "That's cheating. You got it now. You need to be da." And when I tell you, bro, if he would have told me that night, like, to just like jump in the crowd and kill somebody, like, he had me. If he was so like, "You can walk on water," you would have been in on. Yeah. He had me so turned up, and I felt like I literally left that night. Like, I'll never forget it. I was with my artist, and I'm like, "Yo, that was Bus." And I'm like, I'm looking at my cameraman. "Did you get any of that on tape?" And he got like a little bit. And I thought like I was the chosen one until every time I went to tell the story, the person I would tell him to would be like, "Oh, that's crazy because I met Bus." I was like, all right, that's just Bus. But shout out to the OG, and he just was honored. I felt like it was long overdue. He just got like a lifetime award from BET. Yeah. And guys like him, and Fat Joe too, man. Like, I had a real street beef one time that could have went really bad, and Joe intervened. Like, you can't just say you an OG. I feel like it's certain like characteristics that OGs have to embody.
That's right. Yeah.
And he's one of the ones that like he puts his neck out for so much stuff that the world will never see, like the internet will never see. Like, I'm talking about real stuff. He's a real guy. Like, even when he comes here, a lot of people come to Philadelphia. He comes to like a section where like the celebrities of his level would never dare go, and Joe's there, comfortable, family. Like, he'll be out there, you know, no entourage, no nothing, and they love him, and I love him, and salute to both of them OGs. They
still never met Fat Joe, but that's like very high on my list.
And he's the type of brother, like, he's definitely gonna know you. And he's super respectful to our religion. Like, he's somebody, may Allah guide him. He's somebody who I can see being Muslim, because he just has the characteristics, and he has a lot of love and respect for Islam as well. Does a lot of business in Dubai, so he knows a lot of brothers.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful thing, and it's like such a confirmation when the people that we grew up loving, and like the reason that we love the music and the culture, you know, because like they're part of our DNA, like you were talking about.
Yes.
You know, G-Rap recognizing you.
Yeah.
I've had those same experiences with the particular people that I like. I love G-Rap. There's a lot of people that I love their art, but I don't necessarily feel connected to the person. And then there's other people that like, I feel like I already love this person.
Right.
And then when I meet them, every single one of them, like, they're all my dearest friends now. But there's something about the connection that already exists that like we know that Allah wove into us before anything was even created.
That DNA, that's a real thing. That's like me telling you why I resonated with G-Rap. It's something there, whether it was in our childhood, whatever. Like, his message talked to me differently than Chuck D's or whoever else. Like, for me, it was like, no, this is my teacher. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's the same thing.
But we respect all the teachers. We respect all of them. It's the same thing in the deen. I'm saying, like, I'm sure we have different teachers. But I respect your teachers, you respect my, you know what I'm saying?
It's the same exact thing. Like on Fridays, because people here, like, it's very political, obviously, with everything. Yeah. So, what match did you go to? And I'm like, I'm the one guy who was like, I'm a mood guy. So it's like, this Friday, I might want to hear Abdul Hafiz because he's more aggressive and street with his cookbook. Or this Friday, I may want Hassan Somali, who's pure Quran and Sunnah, so it just sounds like you're in Medina. But then that next Friday, I may want to go to Sister Claire Muhammad, where, you know, the brother is, you know what I mean?
See,
it's just
that means
vibes.
A lot to me. That because that's my lineage.
Alhamdulillah.
You know what I'm saying? When I came in, I was like, well, I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. I'm like, I want to be what Malcolm is.
Right.
But the whole time I'm like, I don't think I'm allowed to be a Muslim.
Wow.
Yeah, I always thought you had to be black to be Muslim.
Wow.
So I was like, so I'll just be. I'll believe what they believe. I'll do what they do.
Yo,
and even if I can't be
this
official.
gonna sound crazy though on camera. I'm gonna say this on camera because most people probably wait till after the show to ask you. You just said you thought you had to be black to be Muslim. I thought you was black this whole time.
Most people do. To the point where I've been accused of lying to people.
Wow, subhanallah.
Yeah. So I'm albino.
I know that, but
My
I
parents are
ignorantly
white.
I thought all albinos were black. I just thought
Most people do. And
Right.
also, so the people that made me understand life from the time I was 5 years old were all black. My elders.
clearly because you got a lot of drip and all. Like I don't see white at all. That's crazy.
But what's so funny, yeah, and I'm saying, and that was like, so people will be like, wait, brother, are these white? He lied. You know what I mean? And there's times where I'm like, well, should I not have called myself Brother Ali? Or should I?
Well, wait, they thought you were lying because your name?
My name, and there's just a lot of confusion about it.
That's crazy to me. Yeah.
And
I think it's more the ignorance of us not knowing that albinos could be white.
Yeah.
I think it's more that than anything because we got white brothers named Ali. You know,
Right.
Philly's different.
Well,
so
in Philly,
it's a little different.
In Philly, that's
It's
very
different,
normal.
right,
In
yeah,
Philly,
yeah,
nothing needs to be explained.
Right, nothing needs to be explained. But
So,
like,
yo, that's the white op.
Yeah, that's the white ock. I probably got white ock locked in my phone under some of my white ocks.
It's probably white op one, white ock. It's like William X. You got William 12X in the Nation of Islam.
But
Yeah,
I
man.
just did, but I learned something today, and that's one thing I love because any interview I do, I like to educate, enlighten, entertain, and I love to learn. So I ain't know, man.
There's a sister who hits me up all the time, and she's like, every time you say you're white, it's triggering for me. Stop saying that. You belong to us.
That's right.
This is a sister from Imam Muhammad's community, because that's the
Alhamdulillah.
community I ended up being in.
Alhamdulillah.
And his son-in-law was my direct imam, and like I had a relationship with Imam Worthy Muhammad. So like so there's a sister from that community.
Oh,
That
you gotta visit Masjid al-Law when you're here because that's who they directly. You know, he started that masjid. So
yeah, I've been there.
Inshallah. Oh, you been there?
Oh yeah, mashallah. I've been to Claire Muhammad. And,
Alhamdulillah.
yeah, man. So like seeing you, and like when we were younger, these divisions were serious.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? I was just talking to Free about the fact that like the Nation of Islam and the 5%ers are like one now, and that wasn't like that when we were young. That was beef.
It's still, man, it's so real, bro. I had a conversation recently, and I never talked about this publicly, but like I grew up, like my father, my Uncle Kenneth, may Allah be pleased with him and may Allah preserve him. Great man. And he's actually he goes to Masjid al-Law. And shout to that whole community because I love a lot of the things they're doing. Like I don't have to be directly associated with somebody to acknowledge their greatness and the beautiful things, like, and support them as well. But my father and my uncle started off with the Nation of Islam, like most black men of their era.
Yeah.
And then my uncle, mashallah, he went to Hajj and came back, kind of like Malcolm, kind of came back and realized some things, and we like to say was guided to true Islam.
Yeah.
So I grew up with a lot of resentment and a lot of hate towards the Nation of Islam.
Understood.
You know, and then as I got into the streets and then being incarcerated and stuff like that, it was like a clear beef. It was just like them against us against them.
Yeah.
And I harbored a lot of hate. You know, may Allah forgive me for harboring hate towards anyone.
Amen.
And I had a chance to go to Africa in 2020 with Sister Nilam and her husband Marquise. You familiar with them?
I don't know them, but you know, I actually did meet them.
Yeah.
I met them once, and I obviously loved them. But yeah, I haven't had a chance to really build.
like religiously, you know, we're supposed to, like, where I come from, you're supposed to not say nice things about certain people. But for me, like, they did something to my heart, bro.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Marquise is
the nation is like that. I'd be like, why are the Nation of Islam the best Muslims? Like in terms of like practice and the heart, it's true.
Like this dude Marquise, like, to me, like, because I was in a third world country, and this was, I feel like it was my first or second time, and I'm like, I take pride in being a man and being a Muslim, being a black militant man. So I'm there with a group of people who aren't people I would ever hang with in my regular life. Love all of them, much respect to all of them because they're gonna hear this, but we would never kick it. Even in Africa, I never kicked it with him. But Marquise was different. You know, he's from South Central, so we had a lot of just like-minded stuff. And then I also felt the responsibility to help protect him and his wife because we were like the only blacks in the group. It was a lot of Arabs. But they're like a dab, and their mannerisms and everything about them, it was like I felt like a sucker for not liking them. And he didn't even know because I'm professional. So, but I was like going back to my room, calling home like, yo, you ain't gonna believe it, man. Because I knew I was familiar with Nilam from just the internet, but I didn't know her husband. And I'm like, yo, you know the FOI chick, man? Like they here. And everybody's like, what? Like, and it's funny because everybody back home was like, man, they got you out there with them. Yeah. And I'm like, but wait. I'm like, yo, man, they cool as shit, man. I really like them.
Oh, man.
And like, even like, just like I said, if you've never been to a third world country, you can't speak on certain things. Like, I'm out there with a fork in my sock.
Yeah.
I'm a big 2A guy. I don't go nowhere. I'm the guy that has armed security and a gun on me. So that's tight. But long story short, I felt like he had my back, I had his back, and I didn't even tell him this till like 2 years later. I was like, yo, bro, I gotta be honest with you. Like, I was like almost raised to, you were like my enemy.
Yeah.
Like, I almost was trained to be more violent against him than I am against a white supremacist because I don't even see them. So it's not like they're not like a direct enemy.
Yes, sir. That's
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's like,
man.
it's not like I see a white supremacist, but I will say this, like, Allah like did something to my heart on that trip to the point where like, even to this day, like fast forward years later, like both of them are like, I would kill and die about them. Like, and I don't care what nobody would say. Nobody, my only big homie is Allah. So it's like nobody can call me and say, yo, you can't be around them. You know, they can try. Right. But they're great people. And it's like, we got to get back to just like loving people for humanity.
Yes.
I got caught up in the whole political, you know, like, and it's like, I had to check myself. I remember thinking one day and I was like, yo, man, I'm turning into people I always didn't like. You know what I mean? Like I had to really, and a lot of that came over me when I went to Umrah the first time. I was like at the Kaaba and I was just like crying profusely. And I was just reviewing. I remember like thinking about, like I was getting mad at some of my friends for not going to Friday prayer with me, right? And I was like, yo, who am I to like be mad at them, man? Like it was years when I wasn't going. And I thought about the people who had compassion, like this one brother named Kasib, who I need to bring up more in interviews. He kept inviting me, man. He kept inviting me, and I never would go. Like I was like, all right, whatever. And then I went one Friday, and I kept going and kept going and kept going and kept. May Allah reward him for that.
Amen.
But I saw myself being like the guy who was like judging it, and I was like, yo, I gotta check myself. It wasn't that long ago. I was on the block, and I was doing all. And one of the things I had to check myself with is that I was getting closer to my deen. I was feeling like I was getting in those circles of segregation, and you know, we're upon this and we're the true, and you don't even realize it. And I'm looking up and I'm like, that's not what I want. You know, it's not.
The
fun.
word upon is basically a gang symbol.
You better
like
believe.
the second, especially in this city.
Oh,
like if somebody uses
banging.
The word upon,
it's gang.
You already
banging.
know. You already know what that is,
bro. I can't believe I'm even saying this publicly because I love the person who called me, but I was at ICNA not too long ago, and ICNA was in Baltimore, which for those listening, it's an Islamic convention. It's beautiful. 25,000 Muslims in the convention center. So I'm there with all types of beautiful Muslims. And bro, I took a picture with Imam Omar Suleiman. You familiar with him?
Oh, yeah.
So I took a picture with him, and I got calls right away that weren't good, you know?
Oh, people refuting him, and he stood with this,
you know,
and he was part of this.
Look, the fact that you even know what the call is about is bad.
I know.
But you know what I said to one of the guys? I said, bro, I take pictures with killers and drug dealers and murder. Nobody calls my phone. And this is an imam. Like, I mean, you know, come on. Like, and they were like really upset.
Yeah.
And giving me all these stats on them and all this stuff. And I'm like, bro.
And I already know exactly what the critique's like.
Yeah, and my thing is like, if we start doing that to everybody, who can I talk to? You know what I mean? And then I even said to one of the brothers who I respect a lot, in case he hears this, but I said to him, I said, is there like a list of people we're like allowed to be nice with? Because it's like, who could keep up with this stuff?
Yeah.
But, you know, may Allah guide us all, because that's one of the things that I really wish would change. You know, like even when I was just in LA recently, like I had to put so much thought into it. Like I'm like, yo, where do we go to pray tomorrow?
Right.
Because, you know, I'm a leader, so I can't take like my young boys who's traveling with me somewhere and then, because I'll be honest, I've walked in the masjids and been like, where am I at? You know what I mean? You do have to be careful, you know? So it's like, you don't want to, and like I said, being a leader, I don't want to bring some other people into some madness as well.
Because then you might be in a position where you have to speak ill of Muslims. Right. Because if you want to just clear up any confusion. So hey, they did so and so, and we don't do that, and da 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 da. Right. So if you know if you know in advance, then you don't ever have to even refute or any of that.
There you go. Because you know, I've been in places where it's like the people been really nice, but they can just do one thing, and I'm just like, wait a minute, what is that? Like they can make, like, let's say they just start chanting something, and I'm just like, I'm not familiar with that. Right. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like I don't got to be mean or anything, but for me it'll be like, this isn't where I need to be. You know what I mean? So I do seek counsel sometimes, and I'll hit back home like, hey, where would you go if you was here? Right. You know, so I can kind of, but at the same time, if I'm close to something and I walk in, man, I love my brothers and sisters the same, and alhamdulillah, like just like you know, we go to a lot of communities, they know us already. So it's like I'm not in a position, and my imam knows that. Like he knows like I'm in a different position where like, I have to. Now I'm not going to just stand next to anything and everything. You know, I do have limits with that. But when it comes to the Muslims, when you salam me, I'm not asking you who's your teacher.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not doing the gang. Where you from?
Yeah.
You know, I'm not doing it.
Right,
you salam me, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
alhamdulillah, I was in Atlanta recently. And
You checking Thobe links.
yeah,
and-
I'm not doing that, bro. I refuse.
Right.
And for what I represent, that would be hypocritical. You know, I represent. You know, I was the one. Like, I started my movement. You know, I couldn't wait to say this on this type of platform. My movement was started by Allah. Allah started this movement. When I made the transition, like 2012, I got my first record deal. I signed with Young Jeezy. At that time, my mind frame was not on nothing Islam. I wanted to be the biggest, richest rapper in the world. I would have did anything to do it. I would have shot somebody for Jeezy. I would have dissed whoever, whatever, and I was lost. You know what I mean? And then as I grew closer to my faith, I was in a weird position. I was too street for the Muslims, and I was starting to be too Muslim for the rap and the street world. So I was like in this middle.
Yeah.
And instead of running from the fold of Islam and crumbling to the streets, or instead of, you know, trying to be so into Islam and losing who I am as a street guy,
Yeah.
I just started to do my own thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it formed with my movement. But, you know, we started off as the Muslim Dons, and we got a lot of criticism. People, just because the way I look, people was like, it's a gang, it's a gang. You know, I'm still shaking it. I done been to Mecca and everything, and the people still, are you a gang member? And it's like, no, it never was for a gang. The Don from the gate stand for Deen over negativity. It was just catchy. I knew it would catch their eye, and it worked. But we've now grown to the point where I didn't like what it represented as well. I felt it getting a gang mentality. You know, I get 50 DMs a day like, yo, big homie, what I got to do? I want to be a Muslim Don. And I was just like, it started to bother me. I got a lot of attention from the authorities because I came from the dark side. So the police, when you try to start to do good, the police don't forget all the bad you did.
Oh yeah.
So you know what I mean? It's like, you know, when they pull
That's
me
their
over,
favorite.
yeah, they're not gonna say
Their
hey,
favorite
man,
is somebody
you're
trying to
now.
go straight.
Trust me.
That's some of the biggest targets.
I feel like I've been tested, watched, and harassed more as I've strived to do good than
I believe
ever
you.
did
I
when
believe
sold
you.
drugs. I can't believe it.
I
Like,
believe you.
from the airport to the neighborhood to everything, like the interaction.
I believe you.
But I feel like I'm just finding my purpose and my calling, and I'm falling so in love with it. And it's like, I'm not, you know, I don't have to stand before any man. You know, in the day of judgment, it's going to be me and my Lord. So it's like, it's not going to be any sheikhs or muftis or imams. So it's like trying to, like, you know, post on Instagram and worrying about what one of them think and stuff like that. Like, I removed that pressure from my life and my brand to say, I'm striving every day. I have to reset my intentions every day to be the best version of me and be mindful of what I say, post, like, do. You know, I had a sister one day, she sent me a screenshot of a video I liked of a woman that I had no business liking, but I'm on Instagram. I'm not looking, paying attention to what people are. So I'm literally like, I'm the type of person, I'm just liking everything.
Yeah.
But she gave me a lesson. The Muslim sister said, yo, bro, you out of pocket. What you doing liking this? And I'm like, what is this? I'm like, oh my God, like that is wrong. And then it's like, the reminder benefits the believer. So there's no arrogance in her telling me that. It's like, and she reminded me, and the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, remind with kindness. That's something else that we, you know, sometimes we get, you know, we put these stoves on and these garbs and we start to think we're just so mighty and so holy. And it's like, I hated when somebody would like correct me in a way that I felt wasn't loving.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because when somebody tells you something loving, even if it hurts you or upsets you, you got to receive it.
Yes.
So it's like when I would walk into a masjid in my younger days and somebody, hey, pull your pants up. Like, I don't want to go back there no more.
Right.
But if somebody says, hey, little brother, assalamu alaikum, how you doing, man? You look good, man. But make sure you come here, man. You pull your pants up a little bit, man.
Right. Just that
That's
little,
that little
just
tap.
that little, like, hey, there's a heart in there,
Yeah, right.
and there's one in here,
Right.
and I love you,
Right.
and I'm saying this out of love because I believe in your goodness.
Right.
Like I believe, like I care about you and believe in you.
Alhamdulillah. And that's kind of like what I've been trying to like give off, like, and it's not easy for me because I fight with my nefs. Like, you know, I know, like, I come from an environment that's so hardened. You know, like, people from here, the ones that are blessed to travel don't realize how crazy it is here until we go somewhere else.
I can only imagine.
Bro, like, when I had got signed to Steve Morales when I first started years and years ago, and he moved me to Miami. Beautiful neighborhood. And I would go outside in the morning and smoke. This is my smoking days. And these neighbors would always speak to me. And I never forget calling home and was like, yo, man, what's up with these people out here? Like, they like always talking about good morning and all this shit.
right.
And I never forget, whoever I was talking to was like,
You
hey,
be
bro.
like, man, you thinking like you're setting me up for what?
I swear,
like you're marking
bro,
me for what?
Bro, I thought, like, I was just like, I'm like, either like he's on some like LGBT stuff or he's trying to line me up. And then I had to really check myself and say, how about he's just saying good morning because it's a good morning and he's nice, and that's what people do when they're nice. And letting that go and, like, you know, keeping a little bit of that, because I'm in this world where hip hop is so close to the streets. You gotta have your, you know, your guard up. But as far as humanity, like when you move around, like I said, I was just in Kenya, and when I tell you these people, it's from this tribe, this one particular tribe called the Carrier tribe, the poorest people I've ever met in my life, but the most grateful, sweetest, most beautiful Muslims you've ever, and I don't know what minhaj they're on. I don't know who their teacher is. You know what I mean? Like their character. They don't even speak English, bro. And I've been dealing with these people now. I've been to Wajir 5 times, mashallah. And I got people who have like little girls who I've like watched grow up now. So I met them in kindergarten, now they're in 4th grade. We can't understand a word of each other, but they're my family. You know, the gratefulness and the appreciation, like, it's just mind blowing, and it shows you the beauty of traveling and seeing other cultures. And for me, it's been the biggest education I've ever had in my life. I've learned more in my journeys in Africa than I learned in 12 years of school, for a fact. And then even as a Muslim, like, you know, like my first time going to Africa, I came back home feeling like I wasn't even Muslim enough. Like I was just like, I'm just saying I'm Muslim. Like the way they appreciate, the way they're, you know, the Quran, the Prophet, peace be upon him, says, you know, if you're grateful, I'll give you more. That's what Allah promises. We had one kid in Ethiopia where I had the translator say, ask him, you know, if there's anything we could do for him. Little boy right away starts shaking his head, no. And then the translator says, we need nothing from you. We have Allah. He was in an orphanage, bro. He meant it. It wasn't that he said it, because people can say that. I've heard people say stuff like that in Philly. When he said it, and he looked in my eyes, he meant it. He believed and he trusted. And I left there saying, I don't believe like that. Because if I did, I wouldn't worry about the things I worry about or hustle how I hustle. I would just have that faith in, you know, Allah, how many subs? I got subba. No, that just sounds good. He believed it. Whatever he's hearing when he recites Quran and he's believing it. And I had to ask Allah, like, I admire him. I came here to help him, right? No, he's helped me. Bro, he was in an orphanage that had nothing. Like these kids little boys was sleeping on pink beds, clothes like nothing. No, they didn't know who LeBron was. They didn't know who Drake was. No Wi-Fi, no iPads. And they in there reciting Quran, and you can just feel it. Like I can tell if somebody's like making you do it or no, these kids were just, it changed my life. It's the reason I wound up growing my hair out. It's the reason for a lot of things. And even the last trip I went on, a lot of people don't know, I was just in Kenya. They were calling it a fact-finding trip because I called out an organization for basically misappropriating funds. Like you know, after the 4th time going there, I'm like, wait a minute, like we've raised millions and I didn't see any difference. You know, like you keep bringing us here to do all these photo ops and we're using these African babies to raise this money. And I'm like, they like small stuff, like, why don't they have new uniforms? Why isn't there a new dry eraser board? Like these aren't expensive. Why aren't there new desks? And they gave me a bunch of excuses. And long story short, they reached out and said, hey, we want to take you back to Kenya to show you what we're doing. And they took me back. And I promised not to speak about it till after the Eid. So I got to stick to that because I gave an oath on it. But I will say I wasn't happy with what I saw. And I can't wait to speak about not just that organization, but all them organizations, because I feel like so many things they've been letting everything slide. In Islam, we're supposed to correct people in private and all of this stuff, but a lot of times the bad guys hide behind that.
That's right.
And you know, like my calling, one of the things my business advisor told me from the beginning, he said, you know, what you're doing is admirable, but I'm gonna be honest with you, Tone. He said you won't be able to get any money in this space no more. It's basically gonna be a wrap for that. Every other organization, and I make a lot of money in that space, and I had to say to him, bro, oh well. Like, you know, Allah will replace it with something bigger and better.
That's right.
And even without that being said, being black and being over there with these Arabs, these white-faced Arabs, and these African babies, I know they're looking at me a little more like, big bro, have our back. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, for me, like, and no disrespect to my other influencers, because some of them people are great people. Like, some of them people support me. And they understand, because like I told some of them, like if we were in Yemen, you would feel it a little different. You know what I mean? Like if we were in Somalia, but where your land is, you would feel different. Like me being from America, me going to Africa, I never felt more at home. Like I was like, damn, this like, I'll give you a perfect example. I've been getting harassed at the airport in America for the last 15 years. I landed in Africa and they had gifts and a personalized letter from me. If that's not a sign I was home, like literally, like Derek Tone Trump, thank you. And I'm like, wow. I just LAX yesterday got my bag to the side, going through it and pulling my jewelry out and all that. So it was like, that's yesterday. And I go to Kenya and they literally, a bag this big with a letter, gifts, scarves. And I was just like, that was a sign to me like, yo, you home, bro. You know what I mean? You home. Like, and I claimed Kenya. Like, you know, I never did the DNA ancestry stuff, but for me, I don't have to do it. Like I've adopted Kenya, I've adopted Wajir, and I'm bracing myself for a big battle because I'm calling out an organization that makes, you know, $100 million a year, best lawyers in the world. But when you have a law on your side, you always have the advantage. You know what I mean? So I'm going into this fight feeling like Floyd Mayweather. You know what I mean? I feel like I can't be beat. And like I told people, you know, if Wajir wins at the end, I won. Like there's nothing in it for me because if it was something about me, I could have just shut my mouth. They offered me a Yemen trip while I was in Kenya. Hey, you want to go to Yemen? And I knew what that was. That was the take this and shut up and put on our shirt so everybody think. And I'm like, and I needed that money, Brother Ali. But it was like, you know what? Subhanallah, I can't take that. I can't in good faith. I can't get them kids' faces. Like, and one thing that stood out to me was their feet. Their little feet will be so dirty and so like just like I felt embarrassed, you know what I mean? Like I'm out there with like Yeezys on and I'm looking down at their little feet like, man, like, and the ground up there is so hot that the bottom of my sneaks felt like somebody had a lighter to my feet. I got on socks and Kanye West sneakers, good sneakers. These kids are out there barefooted, the feet in that dirt and sand like it's nothing. And I'm out there, bro, I'm like playing like it's my feet. And you know, we raised millions of dollars. And one of the things that the premise we were out there for was for cataract surgeries. The first trip alone, we raised almost $500,000 for cataract surgeries. I found out on the last visit, they did in total 1,200 surgeries. The surgeries are $100 a piece. So you say, okay, that's 120 grand. So it's like, all right, where's the other 3 point? You know what I mean, bro? It's like millions of dollars. And it's like, it wouldn't even take that much to do right by these people. That's what hurts me the most. It's like I'm from the street, so it's like you're doing some street stuff that's none of my business. But if you make $10 million, don't give them people $500. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna steal $6 million. All right, spend $4 million on the people.
These things happen.
Yeah, these things
come up missing. Sometimes the count's short.
And I mind my business, but don't raise $10 million and keep 9-8 and then think we're not gonna say nothing. So it's a battle that's gonna be a tough one. But when I say I found my purpose and my calling, I don't feel like Allah raised me in this world, this temporary world, for me to fit in. Everything about me has always been for me since a kid. I've always stood out, good and bad. And as I go into this space, it's like y'all never liked me anyway. Y'all wasn't inviting me to nothing anyway. So it's like now to try to like threaten me with blackballing me, it's like I don't want to hang out. And I say this respectfully, I don't want to hang out with no imam. It's not my thing. Like I have my friends, so I was like, I'm not, you know, people call me, oh man, be careful, because, you know, I've spoke out against some very powerful people in our community, and I stand on everything I said, because even when I'm fighting with love. Even
yes, sir, that's right.
Like that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I'm fighting with love, so it's like, it's a tough position to be in for me. But when I talk to the people I talk to in private who won't go on the internet, who say, brother, you know, I'm not going to post nothing, but brother, thank you. That means more to me than the scholar who's calling me saying, you know, according to the Sunnah, you should do this. And it's like, yo, man. And I always rebuttal them and say, what if it was your daughter? What if it was your son? And they stutter every time. I don't care who it is. What? Yeah, I know. You can give me any hadith you want, but when it's at your front door, it's different. You know what I mean? Like, Martin Luther King would tell people, turn the other cheek. But we never saw somebody slap him and him just walk away. You know what I'm saying? Like, and from the people, I know a lot of elders who was around that brother, and they told me, they said, man, the media pushed that so much, but that brother wasn't no punk. You don't get to a level of leadership and legacy of a Martin Luther King Jr. and be some soft guy who was just letting people just smack him and walk away. He was speaking on a mindset of forgiveness and understanding, not the literal sense. Because people would love to throw, it's just like when I get in my bag, people try to, you know, the prophet said, it's like the prophet was the greatest man to walk the earth. You know, using him for an example on every little thing sometimes, to me, isn't the way, because I'm far from that. So when I get mad and I get in my bag,
And that's why they're the Sahaba.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right. Absolutely.
And the Prophet ﷺ said that my Sahaba are like stars in the sky. If you follow any one of them, you'll be guided right. And they're so different. They're so different from one another.
Beautiful. And
they had such different journeys and paths and walks that, like, yeah, that the Rasul ﷺ is the one person that encompasses the best of it all.
Everything. Like
but the
you
Sahaba,
hear a new
that's
story every day, and you be like,
and you're just like, my God.
Yeah, it's like
the one that always messes me up is when the son of Abu Jahl, who's cursed in the Quran, he cursed the Prophet ﷺ. He celebrated when his son died. He starved our mother Khadijah until she died with the sanctions for the Muslims. You know, it was just like on record as being one of the worst human beings. Like as Muslims, like we don't say people are in the fire. Like we don't do that. We're not in that business. Right. We don't say who goes to hell. Like we're just not in that business. There are certain there are certain principles, but like we don't name names and that one is and this one is that. And
we're
that's
not like, yo, he's going to hell.
That's a different religion.
That's crazy.
You know what I'm saying? But Abu Jahl is spoken of in the Quran. Like there's a chapter in the Quran about this man. His son comes to the Prophet ﷺ. This has messed me up for the last his son comes to the Prophet ﷺ and said, and after being vehemently publicly an enemy of the Messenger of God ﷺ, and he comes to him and he says, "Would you accept me as a Muslim?" And the Prophet ﷺ says, "I always knew your father had good in him." Just like, so like not only affirming him, but also saying the thing that probably made you feel like you couldn't come to me is your father. But your father is connected to you. I always knew your father had good in him. It's like that's man, messing me up.
That is
like
different.
When we think about like the things that we've lived through and like the things that you know what I'm saying? That like not only do the people that come to us, but also your entire lineage, like that has good in it. Yeah, but I mean, and that's why it's so important.
I gotta give you a story too, man. And may Allah forgive me, I don't know the exact story, but it was this one story. And the Prophet, peace must be upon him, they were saying that he had a neighbor who would like throw trash.
Yeah,
you heard that?
Yeah,
and he'd throw trash and just be so disrespectful to his property. And then one day he like realized like he didn't throw the trash.
It was a Jewish lady.
Jewish lady.
She threw trash on him every day. And cursed him when he walked by our house.
And what was it, like a couple days went by and he was like, wait a minute, where's the lady that throws the trash?
Where's the trash?
He went and checked to see if she, like, stories like that remind us how far, like, when we think we're great, we should just read stories like that and be like, yo, we're nothing.
And that's why we got to have the Sahaba.
That's right.
Because like we read about the Messenger of Allah, it's just like
it's unreal. Like,
it's like that's
it's like,
what a prophet does.
It's like I give up. Like I can't do that. Yeah.
These are good things for me to aspire to.
That's right.
And may Allah make us that way.
I mean.
If you listen to this podcast, if you enjoy it, if you benefit from it, you need to know that the main people that are supporting this thing and really making it happen are the subscribers, the caravan, the people that are really invested in the community and in the movement of this thing. You know, this is a 2-person operation. It's me and BK1 that really make this podcast happen every week. And it is extremely time consuming. Anybody that's done this will tell you it's a grind. And we're coming up on 80 episodes. In the year and some change that we've been doing this, we've only missed 2 weeks the entire time that we've been doing this. One was because we're starting our new partnership with BetterHelp that we'll talk about in our next break probably. But we were starting with them and we just had to make sure everything was clear with them. So we had an episode ready to go, but we had to miss a week because we were still firming up details with them. And I had already recorded into the episode that they were sponsoring us. And then we missed one other one just for some personal reasons. But we've done this every single week. And I mean, we have families, we've got lives, we've got expenses, and so the amount of dedication that it takes to bring you these conversations every single week I mean, it's a full-time thing for two of us, and we've got families. And so there's got to be a financial part to keeping it sustainable. And so that money's got to come from somewhere. And we have our sponsors, and we're really grateful for them, both of them, for Zakat Foundation and for BetterHelp. But what really keeps us going, and it's been this way from day one, not only in this podcast, but in us being people that offer something publicly to the conversation and culture, it's really been sponsored by the people that listen to it. BK was my DJ when we started out our career. Go back and listen to the 2 episodes with him. We talked through the whole origin story and how this all came about. But we started doing this by sneaking into a radio station where he was doing radio and promoting the things that we cared about within the culture and recording and figuring out how to make this music. And then he's the one that introduced me to Rhymesayers. And that's how we put the music out. And then he and I hit the road, and we're just in rooms. Even if they were small audiences, we would get in that room and really pour it out and give what we had to offer every single night and connect with the people that it spoke to. It's not going to be for everybody. Not everybody's going to want to see a bald Muslim albino dude talking about, somebody that looks like I might have stormed the Capitol talking about white supremacy and the brilliance of black culture and Islam and spirituality and the vulnerability of going through life as an outsider and divorce and homelessness and suicide. And there's not a huge audience for that. But we found the people that it spoke to because that's what's true to us. And those people got in rooms together across the country and around the world and made it possible for us to keep going and for our families to live lives of dignity and to have that freedom to do that. So once we launched this podcast, it's like, that's our base. And that's the reward that we want. You know what I'm saying? Once you start being rewarded for something, then that has a major impact on shaping the journey going forward. And we always want our reward to come from speaking from our hearts to the hearts of the people that listen to us. And the way that we ensure that is by doing the caravan. So you go to brotherali.com in the join section or brotherali.com/join, and you join that, you get down with that, and you are automatically part of a community that asks me questions, and we do meetups and virtual calls, and there's a Slack channel, and there's also a growing library of our own private streaming services of rare and exclusive music, videos, lectures, talks, presentations, all type of stuff that is for the people that really make this thing happen. And so if you're digging this and you want to be part of that, we'll let you know that even a $5 a month subscription, like getting down with this and supporting, being part of this community, part of this movement, it really adds up. The same way that, we were trying to sell out First Avenue when we came back from a tour. First Avenue was 1,500 people, and then it went to 2,000 people. And with this podcast, we are selling out First Avenue every month, or every week, sorry. And so we started looking at that and man, if the people that really benefit from this and are part of this, if we could really open the doors for them to really be our base, the way that they really are, then that will always keep us connected first and foremost to the people that we speak for, the people we speak to, the people we engage with. So that's really what this thing is all about. We're co-travelers in the journey of life. And the way that we support each other is by being in community. So go to brotherali.com in the join section. Get down with the caravan.
One thing I've been really getting into lately is just talking to my elders. Mm-hmm. I was in it's a community in LA called Isla.
Oh yeah,
Imam Jihad.
Oh yeah,
beautiful brother, beautiful community.
Yeah.
And this elderly brother pulled me to the side about 2 days ago, and just a little bit of time he spent with me. And one thing I told the young boys there, I'm like, yo man, take advantage of that. Because when he dies, that's gone.
That's right. And
That's
there's no
gone.
replacement.
There's no replacement for that.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that at their age I didn't do a good job of, because I was a gangster, so I felt like, man, you can't tell me nothing.
Right.
And now I find myself being addicted and getting high off talking to the elders.
Right.
my uncle, I went to go see my uncle the other day, and he was just telling me different stories and different people who I see all my life and never thought that much of them. And he tells me stories about the things they did for this dean that make it where I can walk around with the stove on.
That's right.
You couldn't do this, you know? So it's like not appreciating them is like, I want to be a part of making that cool. You know, I've done a lot of things. You know, people give me credit for, you made those cool. You made this cool. I want to make love, honoring, and respecting and enjoying our elders and sitting under them. Like, that got to be a thing again, because with, all these answers we looking for all these problems, a lot of those solutions is sitting inside that 68-year-old black man that's in the second row that sits in a chair. Don't talk. You know what I mean? Like, you got to just kick it with him and just, you know what I mean? Like,
and he's not a scholar.
He's not.
He might.
I got a brother at Sister Claire Muhammad. He did 38 years in prison, bro. And he's the nicest guy in that masjid. I'm talking about literally, like, he's the nicest human being. He's nicer than the imam, like, this brother, literally, I watch him. Anybody that walks up, you think he knows everybody. He don't even know none of these people. You know what I mean? And his brother's like, he always hit me for money, but that's another story. But he's a great old head. But I'm just saying, like, his adab and just the way, walking in people, because it's a shame. I get so many DMs. Hey, brother, I'll be in Philly on this date. Can you send me to a masjid? And I'm always like, oh gosh, especially with new people. It's kind of like, I want them to go somewhere where people are going to be nice and walk them in. And it's hard here, I'll be honest.
It's hard everywhere,
It is.
bro.
It's hard. Like,
it's hard everywhere.
You don't want them to go nowhere and people just not nice and stuff. But this brother in particular, and like I said, you can't judge people. He did 38 years in prison. Don't know why, but that's a lot of time. So obviously it was something serious. But
I mean, that's
the most genuine great brother. Right.
Yeah. Subhanallah. And I mean, we talk about like leadership. You are that.
Alhamdulillah.
You are a leader. And the main thing that makes a person a leader is that they're in touch with what their unique and specific calling is, what their unique specific message is.
Wow.
And that they honor that. And a person can't be a leader by worrying about what other people say about them.
At all. I got that part down.
Because your position is yours. Like, Allah doesn't repeat himself in creating. Allah doesn't need to. Like, we make the same song 10 times. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a little different, but we know we know I've already made this song sometimes.
We know where we got it from.
I've run this play before.
That's right.
But Allah doesn't do that. So like when people are that much listening to what's going on inside them, and in so many ways, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But I remember one time Isla we did a thing for Eid. I think it was for the last nights of Ramadan. Omar Reagan put it together.
It's my brother.
And it was a bunch of Muslim. I love that. I love it so much, man.
Shout out to O.
People get it twisted because of how hilarious he is and how jovial and happy he is, but he's deep.
Oh man, he's the son of Imam Luqman.
Luqman, yeah.
You don't come from that. You don't come. May Allah be pleased with him. You don't come from that bloodline.
Yeah, people don't know Imam Luqman was murdered by the police.
Yes, he was unjustly, unjustly and framed and set up because of, that's one of the concerns my family has every day. A lot of the men that I really learned from, like that I call my teachers, that I didn't sit under them in real life, but I study their life, I study their way, I study, I always, everything I do, I think and I say to myself, what would Malcolm do? What would Imam Jamil do? What would free Imam Jamil, by the way? What would Imam Luqman do? What would Hassan Samal, like all these different men that I revere, I try to think, and I add my own twist to it because I'm nowhere near where they are and I don't aspire to be. Like I'm comfortable with my lane.
So we did that, the joint. I don't know if you remember, but they had all of these like Muslim poets and rappers and, you know what I'm saying, do like a virtual thing. It was during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And during that time, it was a lot of like, in that community and even in that space, it was a lot of conscious coffee shop kind of, you know what I'm saying, like presentations.
Yeah.
And you came on there and started to say your thing and you put the heater down on the table.
I put the gun down.
Yeah. And then you spit what you spit.
Right.
And I saw in the comments, people were just like, astaghfirullah.
I saw it too.
But that's extremely important.
No.
That's extremely important.
No.
First of all, because never mind the fact that some people don't have somebody to tell them that in the Maliki school, for example, it's wajib to have a weapon, to bring a weapon with you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so however people feel about what weapons or whatever,
right? You
know what I'm saying? That there is. That is part of our religion,
and the stigma of it, like we just seen recently in the NBA. For those listening that don't know what that is, that's the professional basketball league. a young black multi-millionaire named Ja Morant came under a lot of scrutiny for doing a video flashing a gun.
Yeah.
And do I agree with him flashing a gun? I don't know. I don't care enough about that situation. The NBA is not my field. I don't, like you said, I know who follows me,
Right.
and I'm focused on them.
Right.
So like, I don't really get into like the trending topics, but what bothers me about that situation is the stigma of a firearm and a black man. And I ask people, if a hockey player named Blair, I don't know no hockey players, but if Blair Sakinski
in
did
the woods,
same video,
yes,
out there slaughtering animals unhalal.
Right. It was like
nobody.
He's practicing his First Amendment rights, and he's a hunter, and he's
exactly.
Yeah.
And for me, and with everything that's going on, I'll give you a perfect example. In the last 3 weeks in Philadelphia, we've had a highway collapse. We've had water advisory saying don't drink the water.
Yes.
We had the air.
Don't breathe the air.
Don't breathe the air.
Right.
And you telling people to not have guns.
And the thing is,
like,
in that space, and I mean, that was an urban black Muslim space.
That's right.
And still that particular reaction. But the reality is that people act like we forgot.
Right.
Like who Allah gave his religion to.
Right.
These were people who, they made the Nation of Islam said, we don't
like
carry
you said about
weapons.
The Sahabas, like,
right. Right. But like, who did Allah give his religion to first? Like the people that introduced Islam were street brothers.
That's right.
Who always have to navigate safety.
I tell people all the time, the realest. I tell people all the time, our beautiful prophet in his day. Like people kill me. Like it's like the people who do all the criticizing. It's like the way you teaching and carrying it. Do you think you would have even been around those men? It's like when I see certain people post Malcolm, I'm like, Malcolm wouldn't even have liked you, man.
Right.
Like you soft. You don't even stand for nothing. So it's like I be sensitive about that kind of stuff because I know I'm rough around the edges, but as I'm learning, as I'm going, the people like, I had a situation where I had called out this brother for something, and a lot of brothers were reaching out to me, and I was disappointed in a lot of brothers because they, their whole thing was, the sunnah is to reprimand in private.
That's not always true.
That's not always true. But the problem I had with it was...
That's the ideal when you can do that.
Well, let me speak on that because I've never spoke on this publicly. For one, I tried to deal with it privately for 2 years.
Right.
That's what people don't know.
Can I give a little context? Because this is one of the things I want to talk to you about. Because I reached out to you because I was in a similar situation.
Let's talk about
it. So basically, we have these people in our community who, some of them study traditionally and that's all they do. And when you study traditionally and you actually go through those curriculums, you sit with a community of students and scholars that make sure that as you're learning and as you're going through that curriculum, you're actually practicing what you're learning. And that's how you advance in those circles. So when somebody traditionally studies knowledge, you know what I'm saying, that's part of what they go through. Correct. But then we have other people who have some sort of charisma. Some of them are entertainers. Some of them are poets and rappers and things like that. Or they got the gift of gab. They maybe could have been, and they got like the social media influencer type of thing going on. They look good, they dress, and they're dealing with people who don't know better. So they learn just enough. They never go through the actual process of what they call tarbiyah, which is like as you're learning, you're also being shaped like in your character and they're not going to teach you more until you start practicing what they've already taught you.
And you haven't properly learned.
Exactly.
You sit under the people you're speaking
That's
about.
Right. That's
you
right.
You can buy any book. I know dudes in prison who can sound like sheikhs.
And sometimes people do spiritual tourism, where you go to a center of learning and you kick it there and you buy the clothes that they wear and you start learning some of the terms and you start
hang out with
one
of the teachers.
You hang out with teachers, you take pictures of them,
Yeah.
That's my man. And for people who don't know any better, we start thinking that you've gone through that process of being shaped by that. And then the people come back around, and because, so they do have the social media influencer drip, but they don't have the actual, like, the internalized,
the molding that you spoke about, and that's the best I've ever heard it put. And you sound like you talking about the person I was dealing with.
I am, but I'm also talking about a person that, because I was in a very similar situation
which you
to
shared
you
with me before, yes.
Yeah, and where I was with somebody that I was like, this guy's got the best of both worlds, because I didn't know better. You know what I'm saying? And also they know exactly us. They know our insecurities with our deen. and they know how to like make us feel better about what we're doing. They know also that we desire to be people of Allah.
Yes, sir.
They know that we desire certain things,
Yes, sir.
and they know how to tell us things. They know how to teach us little trinkets that they've picked up along the way to make us feel like, man, this is the guy.
I can tell you went through this because you saying stuff that's resonating with me more than
you
anybody else I ever
and you
spoke to
can
about this.
eat and sleep with them, and they can recite the Quran, and they can lead you, and they can and
beautifully,
you know, all of this stuff. And then something happens where like your biggest fear, because there's something inside you that's like, what if this is not real though? There's a little thing inside you, and then you feel like a hypocrite for thinking that. You know what I'm saying? Where you're
think
like,
something wrong with you.
Yeah, you're just like, man, that's my own nastiness.
That's what I went through. Yep.
And you start feeling like, man. And then you go on the record with this person, and you feel like they're co-signing you, but you're actually co-signing them.
Man, you sound
because
like you saw
because the people, and so, and then something happens where Allah shows it to you in a way that you can't unsee it. It's like there is another side of this person. I'm not saying that they're good isn't true, but there's another side of this thing, and
bro, you're giving me chills. They're
using.
This is exactly what I went through.
They're
like to the T.
They're using their good reputation to harm people in private.
Yes. Yes.
And then you try to talk to them about it, and they hit you with that spiritual mumbo jumbo, man.
Spiritual mumbo jumbo.
They start hitting you with all of this. Suddenly there's way more Arabic. There's all kind of Arabic that we don't know.
Yeah, yep.
There's all kind of stuff about, well, and then along the way they give you little things of like, well, I'm not perfect. You know what I'm saying? And Allah forgive us all.
Clip right here.
You know what I'm saying? They give you little things along the way, and you start piecing it together, and you start weaving it together. And then maybe somebody in your life at some point didn't trust them, and you were like, no, chill. You know what I'm saying? You just don't see what I see. But they were right the whole time.
The whole time. The whole time.
And then you go to the institutions that they work with, and you make it known just privately. Hey, this person's harming people. We need to like try to help like make these people whole.
Which I did.
I know you did,
and
brother.
Nobody knows about that.
I know you
did it for a fact.
I know you did that.
Yes, sir.
So the person that I knew like that, they ended up being out the game. They're not in the picture anymore.
Alhamdulillah.
You know what I'm saying? So
may Allah protect the ummah from
anyone
like that.
So when I saw you, brother, when I saw you making that post and I saw you speaking, I was seeing myself. I was like in another reality. Had this person not been out the game, that would have been me making that post. And I had so much respect and honor and love for you.
Wow.
Because I tried to envision how I would do it. I could not have envisioned it any better than you did in that moment. And so like I already, we were together with the Abdullah brothers and Dr. Jackson, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like we've been around each other, and I've been on stuff. And when you put the gun down, I was like, that's a part of our community that's very important. So for you doing that, I understood what that was.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I've always admired you. I've always, you know what I'm saying?
And let me just say,
but when I saw that, I'm like, man, I love this guy.
Alhamdulillah.
Because I saw myself, and I saw you do that in a way that I don't know if I would have been capable of doing it the way that you did.
Wow.
And I'm saying that's real leadership.
Alhamdulillah.
Like that's real leadership.
Alhamdulillah.
Because there's nobody that showed you how to do that.
Wow.
There's no one that shows you how to do that. We don't know how to do that. That's not call out cancel culture. When you were like, I did not want to do this.
Right.
I felt you so sincerely. Like there's nobody to show you how to, but it's like, I don't want to speak on this, but this person is using the good reputation that they have to hurt real, innocent, pure people.
Beautiful people.
They can only hurt pure people that just want to believe in the good of what they're presenting.
Man.
That's the only people they can hurt. You know what I'm saying? And the thing that they speak to in us is our desire to be good. Like if we didn't want to be good so bad, like it wouldn't have worked. And like even like I never spoke my thing publicly, but even within, there's this kind of thing about third space Islam that they've helped to bring forward. That like, well, it's not a masjid and it's not a so-and-so. And I'm like, okay, even within this movement, we all know this thing happened. And there were people who were upset with me, even for raising it privately within those circles, that are like, you're going to mess this industry up. so that there can't be social media influencer imams anymore. And there are people who that's their career trajectory,
right.
and they hate you for messing the bag up for them.
That's what I'm going through right now. And let me tell you something. I want to speak on this publicly, and this is the first time I spoke about it because a lot of interviews I do are different. They don't get on there.
Yeah.
But wallahi, when you asked me to do your podcast, the first thing I thought about because of our private conversations is it's going to give me a chance to speak publicly about this. And one thing I want to say to every brother that called me, and I argue with a lot of brothers about this, like because I was very defensive. So when people were calling me, like kind of like, "Yo, bro,"
try to chastise.
And honestly, may Allah forgive me, and may Allah forgive me, them, and whoever else. But a lot of those brothers were calling me because they were scared about what's going to come out about them.
That's right. That's right.
And a lot of prominent brothers. Let me tell you something, bro.
Because you opened that door.
I opened that door.
It's like in my body so much right now. Like I'm really trying to keep it together.
Like a lot of brothers who I even looked at. Because let me tell you something. The brother who people say exposed. I've been in the rap game a long time. And as a street rapper, I've had a lot of beefs where I've humiliated people on camera. May Allah forgive me for that. Things that I'm embarrassed about now, but in that culture, that was part of the game.
Yeah.
And the brother who I quote unquote exposed, who's a Muslim, before people gotta understand, this wasn't my enemy.
No.
This was my little brother who I love, who I protected. I have a text message where he said,
I witnessed that time we were together. I saw y'all together.
Exactly.
And I saw how he was looking for your approval. And
he flew there with me, like, you know what I mean? So even in that time, he shared something with me. He said, man, when I was little, I used to be scared of you and your friends, man. I said, bro, we was protecting y'all though. Like we always had knowledge of, like, he was raised in the masjid, so he was always like the little guy that was going to end up being like the imam. I was like, when I would see him, it'd be like, hey, yo, chill. They cool. Like, let him, come on. You know what I'm saying? So fast forward up into that time. And what people don't know is he personally affected me. Like he many victims. And I wanted to, first of all, send salams and love to every female I spoke to and still speak to about this situation. Because this is a real problem in our community. You know, the women do not feel safe. They do not feel loved. They do not feel respected. And that's something that we as men have to really address.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, the fact that Tone Trump, a gangster rapper from West Philly, was the one to expose the predatory behavior of Yusuf Chroma is sad, because a lot of these so-called Islamic leaders been knew about his stuff. Because one thing for sure, two things for certain. People said a lot of stuff about how I did it, but nobody called me a liar. Not one person said, nah, that's not true. Everybody was like, man, I kind of thought something, or this happened. And I was, you know what I thought? So why did I have to be?
That's right.
You know,
that's right, brother.
And then a sister gave me some good, she said to me, she said, brother, because Allah chose you.
That's it.
And bro, like I'm almost like I'm fighting back my emotions now, because people don't know,
man.
A couple years ago, like I would have killed Yusuf for that, bro. Like I would have shot him in his face.
I know that.
But the point I'm at now, I can't do that kind of stuff. So for me, like even some of the sisters I talk to, like I'm from a culture where we don't go to the police.
That's right.
So we got to police ourselves. So I spoke to, bro, these weren't just regular girls. With all due respect, these were believing women.
Yeah.
These were beautiful, brilliant. Like dude got a type. These were all beautiful. You know, a lot of them were born Muslims. You know, long, beautiful Muslim names. I spoke to one mother who I tell people this story. She said, my daughter was on the floor for 7 years. 7 years. This girl was going to school to be a law student, a virgin, who thought she was marrying a student of Elm. And then she, you know, she ends up in her situation and is like, yo, and then one of the sisters said to me, she killed me with this, bro, wallahi. She said, you wrote a book with him, brother. And I said, sister, I didn't know. And you know what she said, bro? And it was the realest shit somebody said to me in this whole situation. She said, you should have known. And she's right. She said, you should have known. And after I was getting more information, I was ignorant because all the signs were there. I didn't know how bad it was, but it was like something wasn't right about this brother for a long time. And I was blinded by the things you spoke of. But the conversation, because the dude is a poet, so he's literally gifted with his words.
Oh yeah.
So it's like I was coming at him in private, and he would almost make me feel crazy. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
you know what I feel though?
Bro?
One of the things I had to acknowledge is that I was one of the victims.
I never thought about that, but that's crazy.
I was tricked. I was swindled.
Yeah.
I did the man version of marrying this person.
Wow. So did I.
Like
Pause.
one of the things
Definitely
that somebody that knew this person was like, hey, you should just know this person is a master of non-sexually seducing men and making these people. And Imam Ghazali, who I know, I'm from a stream. My teachers are from a stream of Islam. That's Imam Ghazali. Your teachers are from a stream of Islam. That's Ibn Taymiyyah. Allah have mercy on them both. You know what I'm saying?
I mean.
But Imam Ghazali wrote this thing where he said, he wrote a whole thing about religious liars. And he said, this is 500 years ago, 700 years ago. He wrote, people that are greedy for material things, they want to collect them and pile them up because they just want to be greedy. He said, and they know, so like they know what things to collect. They know what sneakers to get. They know which land to buy. They know what kind of airplane to buy. They buy the things that are the most valuable. He said the worst of all greedy people are people that collect people's hearts. And he said, and those people know which kind of hearts to collect, and they go after them. And they go after people who have a underneath it all, a desire to be pious. Like they have a desire to be. They prey on people that want to be good, and they wouldn't choose us if we didn't desire good.
That's so real, bro.
And so they know. Well, what is an aspiring, sincere person? Because you got nafs al-amara, the soul that just commands whatever I want. You know what I'm saying? The former president, grab him by the what's the name? I just, whatever I want, I do. And then at the end, you have the soul that's pleased and pleasing to Allah and pleased with whatever Allah does. In between that, you got nafs al-liwama, which is like the self-accusing soul. So in between being a jerk and being beautiful is a whole lot of like checking self. That's how a person gets sincere.
That's right.
So like while we're on that road, we always are weaving in between hope and fear and like, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so we question ourselves, and we also feel bad about the things we've neglected to do or the bad things we did. And so a person like that's like looking for like, who do I want on my team? They're looking at this guy like, okay, he's beautiful, he's sincere. You know what I'm saying? And he also got tattoos, and he also got his rap beefs. You know what I'm saying? And so, oh man, if I can use that to get in close to him, then I can use that sincerity, and then I can possess his heart.
Bro, like you saying this is crazy to me. Like I'm literally going through that right now, and like the way you wording it, like I'm learning, because like even what you were saying about like the romanticizing, like no homo, pause, like a man trying to like marry a man, like the way like people do that. I've been guilty of that. Like growing up, like when I think about like my womanizing days, like when I didn't have no money, but I knew how to like,
right,
you know what I mean, like finesse
a
so
sister,
so it's like, you know, when I think about that, and when I think about how that particular brother played me, it embarrasses me, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like when I was talking to these victims, I'm just like, yo, like I felt guilty that I didn't like grab him by the throat and slam him on his face like, for the world to see.
The most
you know
embarrassing thing to me, the person that I had this experience with, my wife said to me at one point while this was all going on, she was like, I will never hold the place in my husband's heart that this other man does. Damn. I felt so embarrassed, man. Bro. I carry embarrassment about that. But I have to go back to like, these people are master manipulators. It's what they do. We got finessed, but they don't finesse people who aren't sincere. They can't.
You're making me feel a little bit better with that one, because when you say that's real.
Because the people that are telling us don't speak on them, they didn't get finessed because they're that.
And let me just say this before I forget, because this is going to be a very important piece. To every woman who was a victim of the person who I'm frank. I'm speaking on Yusuf Chroma, the person I exposed. To every sister who I spoke to and the ones I didn't speak to, I believe everything you told me.
Yes,
I will support you, because it's been a lot of confusion because people think I'm not talking about it every day, because that's not what my platform is for.
Right.
But I am 1,000% in support of you sisters. I am currently working with the Face Group, which is a women's organization who's doing an official investigation on him. I played a big part in him being removed from his position in
Yes,
San
you did.
Antonio.
Yes, you did.
And I will continue. I will stay on his neck, and not just him. I hear y'all loud and clear. I'm not the police. So the other people y'all telling me about, no, I can't just throw them on my Instagram.
Right.
Islamically and just
Right.
professionally, that's not the way to do it. But that don't mean I'm not on those guys' heels too, and I don't have y'all back. I believe, they say, some women be lying. Not the ones I'm talking to.
Yes.
These women aren't lying.
Yes.
These women aren't lying.
Yes.
And this is another thing I want on the record. He admitted everything to me. He admitted. He never denied anything. He admitted everything to me. I have proof of that as well. And all of this stuff is going to come out. But I first reacted off emotions. And the first live I did, I was like threatening him and stuff like that.
See, I didn't see that one.
You didn't see that one.
Yeah,
I saw
round two.
You saw round two after.
I didn't see. I didn't hear the demo tape. I heard the studio.
The demo was terrible.
Hey man, I ain't even mad at you.
And
for
honestly,
that one,
it's
bro.
an audience for that too. And the people who know Tone Trump know that's me.
Yeah, you got you got to just give them that raw, uncut off the dome. Sometimes.
I do, but I want to credit Sister Naja, this beautiful sister in New York. She hit me up and she said, "Bro, I get it, you're emotional." She said, "But stick to the facts."
Word.
She gave me some real good information.
That's crazy.
And let me tell you something that's even crazier. Let me tell you how she came into my life. She was that brother's assistant / she basically created what he does, like on the internet. Like she was the one that helped. It's always a woman helping polishing it, mashallah.
Yes.
So she was the brains for real behind what he does.
When I found out the other side of the person I dealt with, it was the person who had helped build the mystique of that person that came and told me that made it all make sense to me and was like, "Hey, you're not crazy. This is the pattern."
Yep, that's who it was. See, so that's a common thing. And the sister, she was just like, "Yo, brother," she's like, "This and that," and tell me. And let me tell you something to people listening. I spoke to over 30 victims. From Philadelphia to London to Kenya, where we were doing mission work. You have to be so sick to even get sexually aroused in a third world country, with all due respect. Just to even, I don't care. As a child, I had a huge crush on Tyra Banks. If I'm in a third world country, I'm not looking at Tyra Banks saying, "Damn, she look good." It's just the conditions and seeing what the people are going through. Your mind shouldn't be on anything sexual.
Like, I wonder if I could get me some of that.
Yeah, it's just like when I'm in Medina, I'm not looking at girls the way I look at them in Harlem. You know what I'm saying? It's just like you should come, it should be something about your aura that should just be like, nah, this ain't it. You know what I mean? It's like I'll never forget, I was walking in Medina and I had to spit, and in Philly I would have just spit, and I remember walking to my hotel, and I went and I court the spit, like, I can't, just revering, respecting where I was at. So I just feel like when you're doing mission work, to be
Imam Malik wouldn't wear shoes in Medina because he's like, I want to touch this.
You see,
I might touch a grain of sand that the messenger of Allah touched.
Yeah. Now I'm mad I wore shoes in Medina. I can't wear shoes. Inshallah, I'll go back in November. I'm not wearing no shoes.
Medina Yeezys.
No shoes in Medina. I love Medina. Medina's my favorite place in the world. Man. I love Mecca too, but nothing like Medina.
Ain't nothing like Medina,
bro. When I first got off that bus, we changing the subject because we got so much in common. When I first got off that bus, the first thing I never forget is the air, the smell and taste. We from America where we didn't know that it was actual. We never knew what it meant when people would say clean air, fresh air. When I got off that bus, bro, and I said, you can taste it. You got to go there to know what I'm talking about. And then I looked to the left and I saw our Prophet's Masjid. And for a kid who grew up Muslim and you've seen pictures of this all your life.
And you see that dome, man, and you're like, why? You're like, why me?
You imagine me. I'm in a place, bro, nobody looked like me. Nobody was from where I'm from. Nobody listened to what I used to feel, I said this recently on Instagram. I used to feel like out of place.
Yeah.
Now I feel chosen.
That's right.
Alhamdulillah. I feel chosen. Like I was at Fajr at the Prophet's Masjid. Wallahi, I did a survey. I'm looking. And I felt so, I said, I'm the only one that looks like me, that dressed like just little stuff. And I'm like, I'm not left out no more. I'm not the outcast. I'm chosen. Bro, I FaceTime everybody I know from the Kaaba, bro. I'm talking about grown men, super gangsters, just crying.
Yeah.
Joyful for me, man.
Yeah.
Like I'm literally calling my brothers, like, bro, like I'm taking you here with me, bro. Bros is like, bro, you there, man. And like from where I'm from, bro, like I ain't graduate college, bro. None of that stuff. Like for me, man, like to be in that, like you said, reading Malcolm's book. Yeah. Like Mecca was like a fantasy to us.
Yeah,
man.
it's like it might as well be really Wakanda,
right? It was like nobody from my
like anybody like that loves Black Panther as much as our families do. Yes. Like imagine you one day find yourself in Wakanda. And you're at T'Challa's grave.
That's the perfect example. That's the perfect example.
Dude, it's like,
bro, my group was teasing me. Like, they would call me because I was with people who, like, been a couple times.
Right.
So they're like, yo, we about to go get some coffee. What you doing? I'm going to the Kaaba.
Like, what are you doing?
Bro, I'm not doing nothing else but going to the Kaaba. Like, I was lit. I think I got the most pictures. Like, people always say, how many times did you go? Because I got so many pictures at the Kaaba with different outfits on. Because when I go, I live there.
You got different drip.
Yeah, bro.
You got daily drip.
I was the first. I wore a custom pink.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Listen. First of all, I made sure when I bought the material, the brother told me, he said, no man has ever. I said, perfect.
Go ahead.
Custom, unique pink thobe.
Do it.
And I wore it at the Kaaba.
MashaAllah. It's funny because I said pink. I don't even know if I saw the pink or not. But man, go ahead, man.
The pink on,
you can't still wear that pink to the Kaaba, boy.
Bro, and I felt like
you better wear that pink to the Kaaba.
It wasn't just for me, bro. It was for everybody with a tattoo on their face.
That's right.
It was everybody with a criminal record.
That's for Mike Tyson. That's for, man. Yes. Yes.
Man. Yo, bro, I can't do your interviews. You be making me want to cry, man.
Talk that talk, bro.
I gotta get away from you, man. But
yeah, the guards choked me the last time I went because I was there with my daughters, and it was the 30th anniversary of me being Muslim. And so we went to like not the Rauda was a different thing, but we just did the ziyarah where you walk by, and I got close, and I was just like. I was like, Messenger of Allah. I was like, what? You know, I'm sitting there and I'm like weeping. And they're like, go ahead, Haji. They're trying to move me around.
They get aggressive, don't they?
And after a while, I just became aware of like a little Saudi man arm around my neck. And I was like, is this guy trying to choke me?
No, that's funny. They tried to break they were trying to help me. But, you know, like they just giving me little, alhamdulillah, you know, what we do for a living gives us special treatment even in Mecca. Yeah. So long story short, the guards recognized me. They helping me out to get me. To go like to touch the
kiswa,
yes,
the cover. So they're literally bringing me through.
Wow, bro. But the guy's bringing me through. He's about to rip my arm out of the side.
Yeah.
And then I'm feeling bad because people are like, you know, people are trying to get up there and they're like moving. And I'm literally like,
and they're like, who is this dude?
Yeah, I'm like, sorry. But when I got there, the emotion, bro, it was the first time in my life. You know, as a black man, we take so much pride in being tough and strong. I was crying profusely, and I didn't know why. And I couldn't stop. Like, bro, I'm literally like, I'm trying to stop crying so I can make a video, and I couldn't. Like, it looked like somebody was pouring cups of water down.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And it was just, and I just like, even when I think about it now, just thinking about, like I said, like I used to really feel like, you know, like yo, like I'm not Muslim enough or I'm not this enough. And that was like confirmation. Like God was just like, yo, keep going, man. Like
that's right.
I was there by myself. Like none of my friends was there. It wasn't the gang. It wasn't my lady. It wasn't my kids. It was just me. And one of the things that stood out, you know, I had a great teacher there he was from Mali. Some of the most beautiful people come from there. And the brother said, you'll know if your umrah got accepted if your prayers are answered. And when he said that to me, bro, I was scared to death because I said, damn, man, what if mine isn't accepted? And wallahi, I was watching things I prayed for, like one by one. Allah was just revealing, like, you got that. Like, I want a bottle of water. It was like, you got that.
Yeah.
I wanted this microphone. It's like, you got. I was like, what? The miracles of our faith was being revealed to me like never before. Yeah. And that trip, I still can't explain it. Like, it was just. I remember I called Kevin Gates, and like before he answered the phone, he was like, I told you. Because he went before me. He's like, I told you, you over there crying, ain't you? I said, bro, I've been balling for 2 days. He didn't even give me a chance to say hi. He was like, I told you. I said, bro, I've been crying for 2 days. I don't even know what's wrong. Yeah, I couldn't even make a video. I wanted to make my cool A's the top. I'm at the top.
Right.
Wasn't happening, like, bro. It wasn't no big
nah, man, talk, you got no cool.
Bro, I was
You're not cool. Ain't no cool. Ain't nobody cool at the Kaaba.
Nobody, man. But Allahu Akbar, man. May Allah, if you're listening to this and you're Muslim and you haven't been, may Allah invite you and your family.
Amen. It's so much easier to go now than it was even 5 years ago.
You know what it is though? I feel like it's more realistic now because because of social media too. People are seeing people that look like me.
Right.
Because when I was 17, you didn't, like I said, it was a fantasy.
Yeah. We talk every week on this show about therapy because of the fact that this podcast is really about us exploring what's going on inside of us and being able to understand it. And part of the way we do that is by sharing it with others. And so being in community is really important. Having really sincere, deep, lifelong friendships is a really important part of that. But then also having space and an opportunity to sit with someone who's just there to talk to us about our own internal narratives and the things that have happened in our lives and the meaning that we've made, the things that we've told ourselves about what's happened in our lives. All of this stuff is a big part of who we are, who we understand ourselves to be, and how we're able to access our own selves. Like therapy is about my relationship with myself. And so like, why do I need somebody else in that? Because like all relationships, I can't see it all. I'm first person in these things that are happening. I can't see it the way that somebody else can see it, but I deserve to have that vantage point. I deserve to have that information. And so talking to a licensed trained therapist who's just there to serve me and help me see myself and my life in ways that I can't because I'm the one living it. So they ask questions and they help frame things and bring up additional considerations that we're not going to get to on our own. A lot of times the people that we have to convince to go to therapy or try to encourage, like, dude, if you haven't tried therapy, you should try it. You really have nothing to lose but the mystery around certain things in our lives, to just know, well, like, what would a therapist say about this? And a really great way to do that is BetterHelp. And I was, living outside of America, don't have a job, don't have health insurance, all this kind of stuff. I heard about BetterHelp on a podcast and I figured, you know what, I'm just going to try it out because maybe it will work. Maybe it's some BS that everybody's advertising, but maybe there's something to it. So I tried it out. You go to betterhelp.com. If you're hearing this, you go to betterhelp.com/travelers. You get a discount on your first month. And then we also get a commission for helping make the connection to help support the work that we do here. And then you go and start answering questions about, well, what is it that you specifically need? What are areas where you might benefit from talking to a therapist? Then you start talking about, well, is there a particular type of therapy that you think might be helpful? And if there's not, then you just say that. Is there a certain type of therapist you want to talk to? Do you want to talk to a woman? Do you want to talk to somebody who comes from your spiritual or ethnic or sexual orientation? Is there a particular, all of those things? Is there an age group you want to talk to? All those things are things you have access to. And then they help you connect with a therapist that seems like a good fit. And then you go in their calendar and you schedule your time. You decide, I just want to text. Do I want to do phone calls? Do I want to see each other on the screen? You decide all of that. And then as soon as you feel like it's a connection, then you rock with it. If it's not a connection, then you just switch therapists with no hard feelings, no questions asked, no special cost involved with that. You're in the driver's seat. And if you're feeling like, well, I tried this, I would say give it 3 months. Give it a solid 3 months. You know what I'm saying? I would say give it 6 months or a year. But if you give it 3 months and you really have dedicated to it and it seems like it's not for you, then that's fine. But I've never met anybody that's the case. Everyone that I've known that has really given therapy a shot is like, dude, I wish I would have done this earlier, but I'm so happy I'm on this journey now. So BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/travelers gives you the opportunity to check it out and see what's there for you in terms of understanding ourselves better. The brother Amir Suleiman, I was at a low point Dean wise, and I told
love him. I just seen him in Atlanta.
Oh man, I love that guy so much.
I love him, man.
I love him. Yeah,
I love him, man.
Amir is a special person.
I just seen him at Jumu'ah in Atlanta, and then I also met one of his children as well. She was like, "My dad." I said, "I love your dad. He's a great man. May Allah provide for him always and protect him. He's a great brother, man." And
I think he's the greatest living poet.
I agree.
And his recordings are dope. But I'm saying, like we were talking before we came on, like Grandmaster Caz is the illest. And like a lot of our heroes say that. At that time, it was Grandmaster Caz, Kumo D, Melly Mel. Kumo D didn't get to record really in his prime. So by the time he started recording, he wasn't in his prime. So but you got to listen to old tapes to know that he's the illest. And then Melly Mel did record in his prime with a good situation, and so you got all those amazing things.
He was like a star. He was more like the star.
Yeah, and he was he had a situation. Like he was connected to, you know what I'm saying, Sugar Hill Records and Grandmaster Flash and like. But whereas like Caz was like everybody. The hood knows that he's the guy.
He's the one.
You know what I mean? No disrespect to either one of them. I like both of them. I would cut their grass. I would fly to wherever they live just to shine their shoes and carry their bags.
That's right. And I'll be right next to you.
But Grandmaster Caz is like, but there's not a recording of it. You know what I'm saying? There's no recording that you can point to unless you go to his freestyle tapes. You know what I'm saying? But you can't go to like, what's the thing on Spotify that shows you Grandmaster? There's not that.
It's not that.
And Amir is like that. Where Amir just made this dope album with Robert Glasper, and it's ill. You will be someone's ancestor. Act accordingly. It's ill. But like, there's nothing like if you're in a room when Amir Suleiman just goes, and then starts doing his thing. Like, it's funny because Chappelle is always like, oh, Amir's about to change the weather. He says Amir's going to change the weather. You know what I'm saying? And he does.
He has an aura where like, when I seen him in front of the masjid, we were kind of rushing because it was time to pray. And just like that couple seconds, like hugging him and just like the words he shares. He had took one of my lines I said in the song and he posted it, he quoted it. He has no idea, I'm saying this publicly for the first time, he has no idea what that meant to me. As a Muslim, as an artist, as somebody who reveres him, I love him as a man. The brother, man, with his poetry and just his just presence, like, you know, like he's one of them dudes. He's like got the same thing on every time I see him. Yeah, he's always got his. He's black
like a sahabi. He's like
just a
like man. He's the closest
brother,
that I've been around. That I'm like that man. I believe that he's the type of man that fought at the Battle of Badr.
He's just like a man's man. He's a Muslim man.
Yeah,
he's just,
and there's all these corny. I'm sorry, it's corny to me that people are all about Andrew Tate and that type of like standing up for man, because that ain't it. Like what you did on that, what you did when you spoke about what you spoke about,
right,
is like your anger is directed directly at men who harm women and nobody else.
That's right.
And it has the potential to be deadly.
That's right.
That's where the anger is directed.
That's right.
Everything else is like, and your ultimate respect for women,
right,
your care for them,
right,
your like whatever the situation dictates.
Right.
That's manhood. Also your ability to sit with your own regrets right, and your own like need to grow, right, and your own emotions and your own.
You know why
like this is the full spectrum.
You know why
of
that's
manhood.
important for me, and I want to say this on this camera too. I was raised and taught to hurt that guy,
right?
But that's not the Islamic way. And then the people who came to like his defense, and some of these people were brothers I loved, and like I'm looking at my phone like, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, and I stand on everything I said, like, because one thing for sure, two things for certain. You know, this is a mindset I go into every day I wake up. We always at war. I'm black, I'm Muslim, I'm in America. I wake up, I'm at war. And then I'm in a public eye. So when I walk out my door, people know me, I don't know them. You know what I'm saying? So I'm always at war, and I'm built for this war. And for the people that are listening, that are still out here harming and disrespecting our women, I'm coming for you. We coming for you. We will humiliate you. I pray that Allah humiliates all of you cowards, because we live in a time where the women and children don't feel safe, but rats and traitors and sexual abusers, and they all can hide under the fold of Islam off the fact that, oh, we're not supposed to pull anything out. We're supposed to keep them private. So meanwhile, this sister's being beat by her husband. And this sister's being sexually harassed by this teacher who's supposed to be teaching her about the religion. Nah, it's not going down like that. It's not going down like that.
My third weekend as a Muslim. So like I went to the masjid. So I read the autobiography and was hearing like the 5%ers and all this stuff in hip hop. And I just, like I said, I was just gonna make my own Islam. So it was like a mixture of all this stuff. So I was like, well, you know, there's no God but Allah, the Prophet Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, and the white man was created on an island, and the so I was like all this different stuff.
Pulling stuff in.
And my mother was like, there's no way that what you're saying is a world religion. There's no way. Like there's no way a billion people believe what you're saying right now.
Right.
And so we lived in North Minneapolis, which is like mostly black neighborhood, and she went by this little house that had a sign in it, and it had a phone number, and she called, and that was Imam Muhammad's son-in-law. Wow. And she called and she was like, my son thinks he's a Muslim. He's crazy. He's da 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 da. And the Imam, it was Imam Matthew Ramadan. And he said, bring him to us. So my mom knew. So she drove by one day and she was like, what does that sign say? She didn't tell me that she called.
Just like a mom.
And I was like,
lined you
I was
up.
like, masjid? I didn't even know what masjid was. And she was like, what it was. She was like, are there Muslims in there? And I was like, yeah, I think so. She's like, would you ever want to go there? And I was like, yeah. I thought it was my idea. My mother had been dead 10 years before Imam Ramadan told me that story. It was like, your mother called me and I never knew.
Wow, while she was alive, you never
No. She drove me by there and then I ended up going.
Bro, that's such a mom move, though. Like, my mom would pull something like
that. I became Muslim. I went there one time and I just was there. I think maybe the next week or whatever, I became Muslim. This was like the Sunday Ta'aleem joint. So then the third week, the brothers were hanging out afterwards. And I was like, okay, cool. And so they were like, yeah, brother so-and-so, his sister came to the masjid and said that he hit her. So we're going to go talk to him. And I was like, okay, I'm 15 years old. I'm like, all right, what kind of mission is this? We went to this guy's house, and some of the brothers want some like, Aki, we need to speak with you respectfully about da 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 da. But then there are other guys there that had a different energy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So like we go to knock on the door, and one of the brothers said on the door, and the other brother said, cop knock. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So the brother come out, and one of the brothers was like, Assalamu alaikum, Aki. But the other homie like grabbed him and said, we heard you like violence at home, so we came to give you some. And like we're standing at the top of these steps. He lived in like a duplex and he was upstairs. And so the other brothers like restrained the brother that had the like mega like Yeah, I know. We had that. And that's why your first video, I'm like, I know this guy. Yeah. and so we were like, look, man, the Prophet ﷺ never hit a woman. Like, we don't hit women. Like, that's not what we do. So then the cooler head prevailed and was like, we understand anger. We understand it's not easy. It may be that she spoke to you in a certain way. You've got to learn to control your anger, and there are other ways to deal with this stuff. Right. And so he was offering them all this other stuff. And then the brother that was cool was like, because if you don't, he's going to handle it. Right. I
can't keep him calm. I'm gonna walk away with him today, but tomorrow he might say.
And they did like an anger management thing. And I don't know if the guy ever hit his wife again. I don't know whatever happened after that. But like that was my introduction to what Muslims were.
And men.
You know what I'm saying?
Men.
Yes.
Muslim men of honor.
Yes. And this idea that like this binary that there's like toxic masculinity, or like either masculinity is toxic, or I'm the king in my house and I would die for her, so she's got to do all these things for me. And like neither one of those speaks to, you know what I'm saying? Like prophetic, what a prophetic man is.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
That like we're you know, we're loving and we're nurturing and we're caring, and we look at women as our teachers. We look at women as our partners. We look at women as our daughters. We look at women as their own universe.
I look at my woman as my everything. Everything. Like I would be completely lost in this dunya without my woman.
Yeah.
Everything I do. Everything I do.
And when I was telling you, like, man, the craziest time the biggest embarrassment that I have in my life is that my wife saw me being so drawn to this other.
Bro, when you said that to me, I'm usually, you know what we do for a living. We talk. So I always feel like I got an answer for something. When you said what your wife said, I had no clue how to come back. You know how you want to tell your brothers, I'm like, hey, bro, hang in there.
No, you good.
That one is
just like, oh,
hey, bro, you ain't good. Bro, that's crazy. Yeah, but
you better figure that out.
But you know what's crazy?
I'm gonna pray on this.
Yeah, I'm making dua for that one. I ain't had no top ism for that one. Like,
there's like no.
My brain went like this, and it stopped and said, "Go to the next one." But what I will say is because my woman does, you know how that women are human. Right. So sometimes it's like, man, you want to go with your bros and da da da. Yeah. But with the level that your wife went and said, I could never, it's like, nah. And you can. She's wrong about that. But that feeling she had at that moment, we understand. Yeah. We understand. You know what I mean?
And the fact that she rocked with me through that, and she didn't like this brother the day she met him. She was
they
like,
never wrong, bro.
She was like, he
never wrong.
My wife's from the Bronx. She was
Mom
like,
and wife is
he's
never
a little
wrong.
too slick.
Yeah, see?
A little too much attention on the presentation. You know what I'm saying? And my wife's been through a lot before she was Muslim, before we were together, before like she's been through a lot.
Just
she's
from
been
where she from.
All the worst things that can happen to a young girl in the hood happen to this woman.
And sadly to say is like for our culture, like those stories are more common. It's not normally. It's normally that.
Yeah. And so the person that you're talking about preying on the people that don't have that is like he's bringing that into the lives of people who didn't have that.
Somebody said to me, one of the people are very ignorant. And I don't say that in a mean way, but just ignorant. Like
they just don't know.
They don't know. So two of the questions I would get a lot about the victims were, why didn't they go to police? First of all, let me answer that. A Muslim woman is already very private, very modest, even if she makes a mistake because they're human. So if she made a mistake and was intimate with this man, she don't want to go and talk about it to no police. And we're also raised that those people are against us from the gate. So that's not easy. That's easier said than done. Yeah. And another thing people say is that they don't got no father or no brothers. And it's crazy, but a lot of the victims I spoke to didn't have brothers and didn't have fathers. So this looks very intentional in how you're a true predator, because
they know who to go for.
One of the sisters, her father is incarcerated, and he was one of the comrades of Imam Jamil. Like this guy is a man's man, true warrior, true Muslim warrior. And you know, if he would have been home when that happened, he would have went back to jail with no problem to honor his daughter and defend his daughter. Because, and one thing I said about the sisters is, I said to my brothers, to my team, you know, they like to call us a gang. To my gang, I said, treat this like this is your sister, because it is your sister.
That's right.
And we have to take that into all these situations. We have to stop, you know, like when you're riding past and you see that hijabi at the side of the road talking to a cop, it's obligatory for you to pull over and say, hey, sis, you okay?
You good?
You okay? Yeah. Just that 1 second.
Yeah.
You know,
dude, Imam Ramadan, like I remember one time we were again, I'm 15 years old. We were all at this like gathering and it was over and we were just kind of sitting around, and he maybe went to make wudu or something, and one of the sisters was like, all right, I'm out, salam alaikum. And we're like, wa alaikum salam. He came back, where's Najla? I said, oh, she left. Okay, who walked her to the car? And I was like, he was like, oh, you're cleaning up after this. You're cleaning up after the event. And then the next time I was there, he taught me how to walk a sister to her car in a way that I'm not hollering at her, I'm not checking her out, I'm not so and so, but it's just letting her know that there's a brother there and letting anybody else know there's a brother here.
And more importantly,
and he told me he was, and he said,
and you walked her.
Yes. Oh yeah.
I know it.
And he told me specifically, this is how you position your body so you don't try to look at her backside when she sits down in the car. It's not your business. That's not what this is. This isn't you being. This is not a new finesse technique on your part. You know what I'm saying? Like this has nothing to do with you getting points. This has nothing to do with you
leadership, though. Because think about it. You was 15. Yeah. You are way older now, and I bet you think of his words.
Never forget it.
Right.
Yeah. I remember 3 times in my life that meant. I remember 3 times in my life that man said, "Bro, I'm proud of you, man." I'll never forget that. I'll never forget it.
Man, you break it down.
He said that 3 times to me in 30 years. But I will never forget that. You know what I'm saying?
Nah, bro.
Then he was like,
you say so many things that make my brain
man, he one time I used to give the khutbah, and when I was like 17, and he was like, where all the imams are going to be out of town at this thing. So he's like, so you're up. And I was like, man, thank you for thinking I'm good enough to do this. He's like, I don't think you are. But I think you could be But that's up to you.
That's a leader, man. I love him already. I love him.
Yo.
He said, I don't think you are.
He was like, I don't think you are, but I think you could be.
Subhanallah.
And it means something that you're the best one up to bat. This is just by circumstance, but I think you could be that because you are next in line for that. But so you could be.
But that gives you the lesson in that. It humbled you right away.
Yeah.
But it also made you shoot for the stars
yep.
too. Like, look at the beauty in that statement.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what I meant about sitting under the elders. Mm-hmm. You're a grown man, successful now, and you still going back to those lessons, whether it's walking to the car, whether it's giving a cup, whatever. And then you saying that to your children, your friend, even me. Like, I walk away learning from that. I'll never forget, man. A brother said to me about 3 years ago, we were on FaceTime, and he put me on the phone with his dad, a brother from Sudan, and he said, "Oh, you the big you the top hog." Like, he complimented me. You know, I'm smiling. Alhamdulillah. And then he got, like, serious, and he was like, "But are you ready for that?" And at that moment, I didn't understand it. Wallahi, I said, I'm ready. I'm the biggest. I'm the top. And months later, I went through something in real life, and it was going on, and I'll never forget. My lady, she was like, well, you supposed to be the top guy. Like, what we gonna do?
Not feeling very toppish.
Not feeling very toppish. And I thought back to the elders saying to me,
"Are you ready for that?
Are you ready for that?" And I wasn't. I was too emotional at the time to be a true leader. Like, I still wanted to, like, handle things with violence. Mm-hmm. It's not leadership. Mm-hmm. It's not leadership is telling a 15-year-old what that brother told you, what Imam told you, Imam Ramadan told you, saying, "Nah, man, I don't think you're good enough, but I think you could be." Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like just like that truthfulness.
So then when he comes back and he said, "Hey, I'm proud of you, man."
Oh, I know what that meant to you.
It's just like, that's real. That's real. Because he doesn't say things like that.
Say it, and you know he don't just say it. So when he said it, what it meant to you, like, that's something I always wanted from my father, man. Like, when people would, like, I met this guy one day and he was telling me how proud my dad was, and I was just like, it didn't feel real because I always wanted to hear that from him. Man, I wanted him to tell me, like, the things you hear from everybody else.
There's a scene in The Sopranos.
That's my show.
Where AJ breaks the dish and he's like, "You want me to get a vasectomy and this is my male heir?" And he feels bad. So he gets the pizza and he comes and he goes, "I couldn't ask for a better son, AJ. And I mean that." Yo, I cry when I saw that. That's all I ever wanted. Like, how come? Like, how come I can't? You know what I'm saying? Like, man, Tony Soprano said this to AJ.
This idiot.
Nah,
man, listen. I used to be, bro. Like, not to sound cocky because we Muslims, but, like, I always been the man. Like, kindergarten, I was the guy.
I believe you.
Like, when we had an auditorium, like, I got kindergarten videos where, like, Tony's the next Will Smith. Like, they've been putting this on me since 5.
Yes.
So, alhamdulillah, but
yeah.
I was the kid who would hit the game-winning shot, and my dad ain't there. The only one, like, everybody dad there, like, the bench warmer's dad. I'm like, why they ain't there? He don't even get in the game.
Yeah.
And even, like, as I grew, like, with the music and being in the newspapers and stuff like that, and my mother is the proudest. Like, you could forget about it. But for my pop, it was like, yo, I just want him to know, like, I'm really him now. I'm the man.
Dude.
And he finally acknowledged it in his way. Mm-hmm. And a lot like how the Imam was so stern with you, my pop's not going to overdo it, but it was a point where he in his own way, he was just like, my boy's the man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he got a chance to kind of see my operation and see, like, me in charge and me sending, guys that he knows as generals as well that are under me now. And I'm like, yo, go get, and Pop is like watching, like, oh shit.
Yeah.
My boy got this thing, you know what I'm saying? And, and that meant so much. And he didn't have to verbalize and say it. Yeah. But just seeing his face and, like, you know what I mean? Like, little stuff, like, where he might have wanted something. I'm like, nah, sit down. Hey, yo,
right.
And he like, oh, okay.
Like, aha.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, Pops, I got this.
My man.
Right. and people that he revered, seeing how they spoke to me was like, yeah, Pop, like, this is how it go, So that was important to me. So when you say, like to hear you say, man, I remember the 3 times he told me he was proud.
3.
SubhanAllah.
One of them was in front of people when I had a group of, like, people at my house and we were studying something, and actually what he said to me is like, man, he gave me a really high compliment in front of people, and then he stopped coming to the gatherings. But he said, I was like, you know, Imam Ramadan, you have anything you want to say, add, correct? You know what I mean? I'm like, cause you know, I'm your student. He said, man, I feel like that teacher where the student passed the teacher. And then he stopped coming. And I asked him later, I was like, were you upset? And he was like, no, you don't need me there. I don't need, yeah.
That's beautiful.
I found out, man, my dad,
that's beautiful.
my dad died of suicide. So did his dad. That's how the men in my family have died. So when he died, and he died in Allentown, PA.
Your father and grandfather?
Yeah. Yeah.
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was on tour when he died. And I came back, and they live in Allentown. And you know, there's like a Muslim community in Allentown, PA now, but it wasn't that back then. So I went there, and his wife, and like he had like stepkids. First, we were like going places, and I didn't really know them like that, but we would go places, and these little kids would be like, oh, that guy that works in that place where the oil change place, he knows your music. And I was like, oh. And then we went somewhere else, and they're like, yeah, the people in there know your music. And I was like, how do y'all know that? He said, your dad, anytime he saw young people that seemed like they would know hip hop, would be like, hey, do you guys listen to hip hop? Anybody in here know who Brother Ali is? And if they said, yeah, he'd be like, that's my son. And then she found on his computer, he had like a whole thing where he was like, he had every interview I ever did. You know what I'm saying?
And you never knew this?
Never knew.
Damn.
And there was like a family that came from Jersey. Like this like black mom and her son came from Jersey, and they moved to PA trying to get out of the hood or whatever. And they used to say like I kind of heard about this, but they would say that like he unofficially adopted this like black son. And then like the black woman, his mother was like, yeah, she's like, I don't know how this makes sense, but he always said that this was like he was trying to do better than he did with you. Because we had a rift over the fact that like, so some of the world sees me as black, including black families that were like helping me, including and loving me. Yeah.
I always thought that.
Yeah. So like elders and homies and women and like so a bunch of people were just like treating me that way. And so when I was with my white family, I beefed with them, and it wasn't not intentionally, but things would happen, and I'd be like, black people couldn't have done this. Just saying things like that, you know what I mean?
Right.
We pull over late at night because we run out of gas, and like somebody helps us, and I would just be like, if we're black, we couldn't do this. You know, we just have to sleep in the car till morning or something. You know what I mean?
Real rat.
And so, and they would hate me for saying things like that. So it was like tension in the family, and they felt like you didn't abandon them. Right. Yeah. So my dad, and I had no clue this was even happening. Like we were in contact, and I would see him and stuff, but he never told me. Like, oh yeah, there's this.
Meanwhile, he was so proud, low key,
and trying to repair.
Wow, right.
But that's what I'm saying. But so like, with you being the leader that you are, and being the man that you are, and taking the stands that you take, and representing how and who you represent.
That's right.
But then also being open in the way you are. Like, not only is it leadership, but it's a type of leadership that we weren't necessarily shown.
Right, man. That's one of the reasons why I want to start talking more about mental health.
Yeah.
Because we need people, you know, like for what I represent, certain things that if I don't talk about it, they won't see nobody talk about it.
Right.
And, you know, a couple of years ago, I thought mental health was some bullshit. I was like, oh, people using excuses. And then about 2.5 years ago, I went through this dark space in my life where I couldn't explain why I felt the way I felt, where I was so down. I couldn't even front on Instagram. Like I couldn't pick up my phone and pretend like I was okay. Yeah. I felt physically and emotionally and spiritually sick, but it wasn't nothing. Like the doctor would say, you're fine. And now when I look back now from a distance, I'm like, yo, that was mental health. I was struggling with something, and I was dealing with depression, trauma, and also just, you know, like when you at the level I'm at, I'm gonna be frank with you, like a lot of these dudes know they can't F with me on no street stuff, or they can't come hurt me because we would destroy them. So that's when black magic and the evil eye becomes so real, because people are just jealous and praying against you every day.
Yeah.
And I felt like, you know, I don't know for a fact, I'm not that religiously advanced to know, but I truly felt like, you know, being around people who just envy you and people that you love, who just, you know, like you can't be around people that want to be Brother Ali. I can't be around people that want to be Tone Trump. You know, we need people that's going to support us, and we can support them. And like, I got a brother named Ubaid, who one of the dopest things about our relationship is he don't rap, he don't want to rap. So it's like our lanes. So when we in LA navigating, everything he's doing is to enhance MDF and Tone Trump. And then it enhances him in the meantime. But he's not trying to like get a picture with the celebrity we ran into at Maestro's. He's taking a picture for me because he knows it's good for our brand. Right. But he doesn't take the pic and say, hey, bro, get me one too. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, he's a guy who like, and I had so many of those, hey, get me one too guys around. And the producer of
this podcast is like that. Yeah, my man BK is like that. Yeah. No kind of like, never wanted to be in the front.
There you go. And that's rare. He
started as my DJ, and from day one, he's like, we're going to make the world see how dope you are. Dope. That's his
true brother. True. And that's how I got, may Allah reward this brother, because it's like, I had a lot of dope brothers around me, and they don't mean no harm. That doesn't mean they're bad people. Right. It's just that they need to be chasing their dream over here, because you taking from and you're not adding to. Where I got this brother who, everything about him, and he does so much for me, it makes me want to elevate him. You know what I mean? It's like, yo, I gotta make sure this brother's good. You know what I mean? Yeah. And mashallah.
That's why we're always doing shout outs.
I'm sure you the same way.
Shout to so and so.
Yeah,
shout to so and so. Because it's just like, man, people need to know. Like, you see me, but like, just like you see the branches of the tree, but there's roots that are holding it all up.
That's right. And especially with my movement, like, people give me so much credit, and alhamdulillah, I appreciate it. But like, just know that this Tone Trump and this MDF machine, I'm nothing without my woman, my children, my brothers, my true sahabas. Like, you know, my 9-year-old son does so much for my brand, Aleem. Like, whether it's taking pics for me, taking a video for me, helping me with captions, you know, helping me pick beats. You know, I'll be listening to a beat and I'm loving the beat, and he'll be like, you like that beat? And him saying that make me be like, so then I'm like, why, you don't like it? And he like, nah, I like the other one better. And guess what? I put the other one back on and I write to that one. So my son's he's an EP for our brand, and you know, having that sense of family and brotherhood and sisterhood. There's so many sisters who pray for me and uplift me and support me, and I'm nothing without them by the permission of Allah. So I don't front like I'm just this, you know. Of course I call myself the top ock. That's a persona I take on, but I call other people the top ock too, because like your vulnerability in this interview, bro, I learned so much, man. I did an interview the other day, and I told somebody, I was like, man, I was about to cry. And somebody in the comments was like, yo, cry, bro. Right. You know what I mean? Like, and hearing that, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. And that's going to take some time because where I come from. Sure. But hearing that felt good. You know what I mean? Like, nah, man, cry, bro. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, when you said the story about about your mentor just telling you 3 times, like, I'll be thinking about that next week. You know what I'm saying? Like, and there's lessons in it, because the reminder benefits the believer. I tell my children so much I love them and I'm proud of them, bro. They might not even know what it means yet, but that's a sign, because it wasn't being told to me. Right. So it's like I overdo that. You know what I mean? And my wife comes from a different background. Her family wasn't really like into like the, you know, it's like mushiness or like I love you, I love you, I love you. Where my mother was just, she overdid it because my father was. So she, I'm so proud of you. You the best, and she made me believe it. So that's
like
why
Kanye's mom.
Exactly.
Like Donda West's mom.
Exactly. Like Free, I tell you, like Freeway is one of my OGs. Like Freeway is from my neighborhood, and he's older than me, and he made it first. So he's somebody I always look to. But we the total opposite. You know that. You know what I mean? Like Free, one of our VJs here, who's a legend on the radio, named Q DZ. Freeway just got honored for his 20th anniversary of his classic first album, which I believe is the greatest album to come out of Philadelphia, the home of the Spitters, Philadelphia Freeway. Shout out to my brother, the GOAT Freeway. But the guy said, Q DZ said, I don't think I've ever seen Freeway raise his voice.
Not off the mic.
Yeah. And I thought about it too. And I was like, and I've literally known him since he was a kid. I'm like, yo, I've never seen him raise his voice either. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And just that, you know, just being around you brothers, different brothers, like I take the good. Yeah. And to compliment you, bro, like the way you so vulnerable, and like that's what I loved about when I was doing my homework on your podcast. It's just like it was times where we were talking where it didn't feel like an interview. You know what I mean? Like it felt like I was just talking to my eye.
Well, part of it is like we have this bond that like we just happen to have mics, and it's crazy. It's like, probably good for people to see that, especially people in the community, because I don't see.
How dope is it going to be too though when they see the scene where I didn't know you were white? Like I literally, and not only to take it even a step further, I was sitting here thinking like, damn, so like all my albino homies growing up, man, maybe they weren't black either. I gotta call some niggas up like, hey bro, you black?
Like you're on the record 37 times for saying the N-word.
Yeah. Like we've been talking a lot of shit to each other over the last 25 years. I'm gonna see your parents, man.
Remember that time you called so-and-so a booty scratcher?
Yeah,
You
like,
got
I'm offended.
We got to check your file now.
Yeah, I'm offended now. but I was educated. Alhamdulillah, I was educated, and just being in this space I'm in, man.
Yeah.
And one thing to your audience, to my audience, because both our audience gonna see this, and to people who never knew who I was, just be mindful that we all still learning.
Yeah. MashaAllah. Man, I got a million other things I wanted to talk to you and
man,
ask you about. But
we got to do a part two.
Yeah.
We got to kick.
We should just do a whole joint together.
Yeah,
we should do a whole podcast together.
We should. And it's like,
because I was also thinking like Ali means hi, you know what I'm saying, and Ak means brother. So I'm like, like brother Ali and the top Ak, like they mean something very similar to each other.
We got to sit down and talk.
Yeah.
Because you just like, bro, like you in the same business as me. We do a million interviews, but like I got the chills so many times. I fought back tears. Like y'all pray for me because I haven't become comfortable enough with my emotions where I would even dare shed a tear on camera. Literally, bro, when me and you was talking to this like about 3 different times, I'm like pushing my, like they gonna see it. Like I'm literally like, oh shit, he about to make
Don't
me.
you do
and
it.
seeing you be that vulnerable, man, I respect it, bro. I honor it. And I learned from it because that's a power in it, man. Like hearing you talk about your mentor and what your wife said, and that's a vulnerability that I have to learn because people, like when you say I'm a leader, one thing I never call myself a leader. Like if the people call me that, alhamdulillah, and I'm embracing it now because you can't deny what's right in front of you.
Yeah,
people are coming up to me, saying things to me, DMing me things. And, I was just in LA in Crenshaw, and the brothers, I know they come from what I come from, and I'm feeling so prideful to see the levels I'm reaching. Because, like you said, it's nobody for us to go to because it wasn't nobody that was like doing the type of music I was doing and forget music, what I was doing in real life, and then transitioning and being somebody that every city I go to, I visit the masjid. You know what I mean? And I speak there. And I just did a tour in Canada. I did a lecture tour, bro. The same kid who didn't feel he belonged in the masjid is now in the oldest masjid in North America with 1,000 people listening to every word. Yeah. And I don't go in there like I'm some imam. My journey is my journey. Right. And you don't have to be Muslim to relate or resonate because it didn't start off like I wasn't the kid who was studying under the sheikh. No, I was the kid who was carrying guns to school. I was the kid who had crack in my locker. I was the kid who still has tattoos on his face, who still gets tatted. So for those kids, they need somebody too. That's right. And I promise you, I'm never going to let them down. And the morals that I have from the streets and the things I learned in the music business and all these things I bring with me, man, like I can only be me. I will never stand with a rat. I will never be quiet about a person abusing women. Just know that I'm going to live and die as a man. That's right. I will not betray my brothers. I will not ever rat. If I did it, I will do the time. And I wake up every day trying to be better. I fear and love my Lord. I love his creation. No one loves the Muslims more than me. Even in my mistakes, I love you all. Even the ones who talk about my tattoos and me still doing music. I love y'all too because Allah wants me to love y'all, and I have to stand before Allah, not the imam, not the poet, not the rapper, not the producer, not the community. I will have to stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and when that day comes, I pray that he doesn't take me until he's pleased with me. Amen. Ya Rabbi. Amen. Thank you for
appreciate you. We'll do it again.
Yo, this love is a classic, bro. I love you more, man. May Allah increase you in good. Amen. Bless you, your platform, your family, and man, the love and the honor is true. Amen. Like I said, bro, this means a lot to me, and this was a great convo, man. Yes, sir. Love. Yes, sir. Classic, bro. Yes, bro, you can't have me crying on camera. Shut up, man.
Special thanks to my dear friend and my brother, Tone Trump, for being so gracious and generous with his time and for just being so real. What I really come away with is like, I believe this to be a person who is sincere. That's what I see in him. And that's my experience of him. And when that's the bond between people, I don't have to co-sign every single thing that he says or does or the way that he sees things, and he doesn't have to co-sign everything that I say or do or the way that I see things. Another part that you might have heard in this conversation is that there are different approaches to and expressions of Islam, and he and I come from different expressions within Sunni Islam. And so just based on that alone, like we're going to have different experiences and we're going to say things and understand things in different ways. But when you believe that somebody is coming from a sincere place, that's okay. That's what's most important. And so I come away from this just loving him. Like I love him. And this is how so many of my relationships are. It's like I haven't spent every day with him. You know, he hasn't spent every day with me. He doesn't know all of my faults and flaws and inconsistencies and contradictions, and I don't know his. But it's like, man, I believe in where he's coming from. And that's very valuable. And I get a lot from witnessing him and from being close to him and from being able to hug him and look in his eyes and talk to him and cry with him and get goosebumps with him. And it's a connection that really comes from beyond, and I'm very, very grateful for it. Thank you for being here. Yo, thank you to the people who sponsor this podcast, to the people that are members of the Caravan, whether it's at the $5 level, the $25 level, the $100 level, all of them. Y'all are the ones that really keep this thing going, and we're very grateful to you. Go to brotherali.com in the join section, brotherali.com/join. Get down with the Caravan. Be one of those people that makes these conversations happen and possible. We're grateful to Zakat Foundation. We're grateful for our relationship with BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/travelers. Get you some therapy. We all need it. You know what I'm saying? It's a very real thing. Special shout and thanks. I always thank the people that were there at the beginning of this podcast. Mansoor Panawala, Amna Mirza, Last Word, Darian Washington. Those are all the people that were there at the beginning. You know what I'm saying? The people that put something in to help us do this thing when we were just getting on our feet. Also, Ant, who did the music, and also Mark from Medina Hip Hop, who did the logo. All those people have been part of this thing from the very beginning. We're very grateful. And also the people that listen every week, like Imam Khalis Rashad and Shane Atkinson and Rami Neshashibi and Aida Rashid, all the people that listen and that give me feedback on the show. It really means a lot to me, and I really appreciate it. Dan Chisholm, you know what I'm saying? There's so many people that listen and give me feedback, and that feedback really shapes what we do and encourages us and keeps us going. So we're grateful to everybody. Travelers Podcast is produced by Brendan Kelly, aka BK1, and it is a production of Travelers Media. We love you. We got a dope guest next week if we're gonna roll with the one that I think we're rolling with. We love you. We appreciate you, and we wish you well. And we say all of that by saying, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.